Unseen for generations, a DYAD in the force.
Hello, everybody. Ooh. Welcome to another episode of DYAD in the Force, the episode about the Gormans. It's going to be quite a heavy subject matter, but we are joined by two guests. Choco, how's it going?
I'm doing great. It's been, man, we got some of the best, arguably the best Star Wars around. Like, it's been incredible. It's a fantastic time to be a fan. It's not a great time to be here or black or brown of any kind or lots of other things. Anyways, I digress. We have some awesome guests here with us, and yeah, let's go ahead and bring them out. We'll just have you start with saying, you know, who you are, and then and where we can find you and your awesome content. We'll start with Natalie.
Hey everyone, so excited to be here. My name is Natalie Green. I am a volunteer with Get Free, and tonight we're going to be talking to y'all a bit about Project Fulcrum and some of the organizing we've been doing around Andor Season 2 and getting people involved in the fight to fight, you know, white supremacy here in our own galaxy. So super excited to be here with y'all. And we're a Get Free movement on all the different social channels. And I'll pass it to Anthony.
Perfect.
Hey y'all, I'm Anthony, and you can find me at Torres 4 and also on the Get Free movement platforms. And yeah, I'm with Get Free on one of our fulcrums, and you can join this project, which we'll be talking about, at bit.ly/Project Fulcrum, capital P and F. But we'll get more into that later.
Awesome.
All right, perfect.
Shout out to BJ Smith on TikTok. We have Master James Kenobi Working today, lads, but wanted to say hi, Talon Card. I'll watch the show later. Gotcha, James. Shout out to Nemo in the chat. Yo, yo, yo. Phineas McCormick, Cal 4. Connor, Spooky Kitty, Star Bros. Even more Star Bros, yes. And, of course, good friend and senior correspondent to the stars. Cal 4. So what we like to do is, of course, you're done introducing yourselves, but, you know, this is a Star Wars podcast, and we'd love to get to know you guys. So one of the things we like to ask is, what are your... Do we do top 3? We do top 3 projects. And how did you get started in Star Wars? What was your entry point?
And so top 3, you can mix and match. It could be books, it could be comics, video games, whatever. Top 3. So we'll give you a second to think about it, but let us know when you got it.
Yeah, I think I can jump in.
All right.
You know, I don't recall, and, you know, I really have to give a big thank you to whoever was the first one to put something Star Wars in front of me. I mean, it must have been one of my parents or my grandmother or somebody, but the first introduction and earliest memories I have of Star Wars are playing Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 with my younger brother at home. And I mean, what an introduction to Star Wars, because the storytelling, especially with Kreia in the second one, for those of you who have played that game, it really just gets into the nuances of what it means to shape your worldview or galaxy view, and to really decide who you are and what are the impacts of your decisions. So that was some of my favorite Star Wars projects to this day. I could play that game forever. So that's 1 and 2. And then I think I'm going to shout out the Vader comics, Charles Soule's Vader comics from, I think, the 2016 or 2020 run or what have you. The ones that, 2017, yeah, the ones that take place right after Revenge of the Sith. I think it's another lens of seeing how the Empire evolves and how darkness evolves, and sort of the reckoning that Vader and others have with their decisions. So that's me. I'll pass Natalie.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. I'll start with like what got me into Star Wars, because I always love sharing this, which is that my mom is a huge Star Wars fan. Like, she grew up in the 70s. She remembers seeing all the original films come out in theaters, and so it was like in my blood when I was born. I feel like I remember seeing the original films. Like, these are very, very formative early memories. And I even have this picture of me when the prequels came out. I think I was like in first grade, and I like forced my mom to let me dress up as Queen Amidala. I did like the whole makeup, the whole attire. Like, so I was really in it day one, honestly. And so I really have my mom to thank for that, for passing that down to me. And so when it comes to like my favorite project, I am absolutely a huge fan of the original trilogy. Like, I can watch Empire Strikes Back over and over and over again. I would say it's actually like my comfort movie to watch if I'm like feeling sad or in a great mood. No matter what mood, I can watch that over and over again. I think the second thing I'll say, similar to Anthony's answer, was Star Wars: The Old Republic. I very rarely played MMORPGs, and that's the first one I ever played. And so that was like a very formative moment for me in college, having my own like laptop for the first time and playing a whole lot of that instead of socializing. So that was really great. And then the third thing I'll say is Clone Wars. I just really love the Clone Wars, and I think I think I knew early on the connection between politics and Star Wars, but watching the whole series of Clone Wars, like getting into the nitty gritty of those details, I think that's what really like sparked it in my mind, how deep of a connection there is. So those are my top 3.
Awesome.
Awesome. No, that's
Very
that's-
unique. We rarely get guests that call out Knights of the Old Republic and SOTOR, right? You guys have
Not
unique
gonna lie,
lenses
I
into
played
like
through
knowing
all of the
Revan.
storylines, and
Yeah.
I played through them back before they made it convenient to.
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
Right.
grinding.
Love a completionist.
Yeah. And I'll also say, like, it's not, I was like, I'm not going to add this in a serious note, but I love Lego Star Wars. I've built, like, the Millennium Falcon. I have a whole bunch in the living room, a bunch of different Lego sets. I also have played those video games. And so I'll just add that in because I think it's, like, a really great way for young people and, like, kids to get involved. And it is also, like, I find for friends who maybe aren't super into Star Wars, like, that is a very approachable way to get them in. So I'm gonna give some Lego Star Wars shout outs too.
Absolutely. Also, the Lego specials that they've been putting out have been fire. Like,
I
all of
know.
them.
Yeah, they're so sick.
Follow up to your Empire Strikes Back really quickly. What is it about Empire Strikes Back? Is it Yoda cottagecore?
I mean, I think that's definitely part of it. I mean, I think it's just like I think in this movie, I feel like it really like built up, at least like when I first saw it, not necessarily having any understanding of like who Luke and Leia were, because I didn't I hadn't heard of spoilers. I was like, I don't know, 6. And so like that reveal, I think is one of the greatest reveals in like cinematic history. And I will still stand by that. And I think it just like really put into perspective all, like something we'll probably talk about tonight, is it really put into perspective all the different roles that kind of make up a rebellion, all the different roles that make up an empire. It isn't just strictly Darth Vader versus Luke Skywalker or Leia. It is like all these different people. You have people who are senators, you have people who are military leaders, you have people who are propagandists, you have people who are, you have actually like the clones, you have all these different roles. And I think it just really highlights like how 1,000 different things have to work out in order for these political or wartime situations to happen. And so I also just found it to be like, in terms of characters, some of the most like complex character building in all of the movies. And yeah, I even have like a tattoo of the Millennium Falcon from that movie. I really hold it dear in my heart.
That's
so
awesome.
That's definitely my favorite.
Yeah, it's still one of the tops for me. That was one of the movies, like, because when you start at A New Hope, you have this kind of, especially at a young age when you're introduced to the movies, you have a weird perspective of what this world is. But when we get to Dagobah, it's one of the most familiar settings, because like if you've ever had like an intro to like high fantasy, right? It's like a murky like jungle with like a small cottage or a hut, as we call Yoda's hut. And it's a small green creature, it makes things a lot more fantastical, and it introduces the magic system a lot more. And so that was one of them for sure.
Yeah.
I used to rewatch that scene over and over again and laugh hysterically at Yoda being all whimsical and like, how do you get big eating food like this? And the way his little puppet mouth like moves like a cow. I love that. I actually wanted to shout out what Anthony said though with Kreia. I think Kreia is one of the most interesting and complex villains of all time, and I am absolutely praying that Baylan Skoll takes on a Kreia-like role in Ahsoka. Because he said he's trying to find the source. He's trying to break the cycle of what's going on.
Yeah.
And that feels Kreia-esque. We could get there. I'm hoping.
No, totally.
It's interesting too.
Yeah.
They were talking about it. They were talking when they were talking about the recasting and talking about continuing Baylan's story. They said that he. They were talking about the representation of orange. They said that they weren't Sith. They weren't necessarily following an evil path. They just disagreed. So, just like Kreia, there's a little bit of a ideological disparity there.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Baylan Skoll doesn't go the way of Kreia. For those who know what happens to her in the end.
Well, maybe not that part.
Maybe that's a part of it. Yeah, no, it's, you know, let's bring back Knights of the Old Republic. I mean, whether it's a remake of the games, which I know is a topic of discussion for the past few years, of many people don't really know what's happening with that, but the if they're gonna make another show in the future, I mean, let's go back to that era. Let's bring Kreia into the 2020s. I feel like she would hit even harder in this moment.
I agree, and you know,
That's
the High
right.
Republic does make reference to the Old Republic a number of times, and so like, I feel like they're getting there. I feel like they're trying.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about the Old Republic too, especially the Dark Council era, was, you know, we always, especially when the prequels came out, there was a lot of turmoil introduced into the Jedi. Like, this was our first time seeing them at the height of their power, but of course, the narrative was skewed towards their downfall. So we had to see them flawed and making mistakes. In the Dark Council era in the Old Republic, we see the same thing, right? You know, most of our Sith lore and ideology comes from Palpatine and how he twists things, but then you get a council of other evil dudes that are just like, no, I disagree with your evil. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's an interesting kind of perspective to have that amount of perspectives around the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the top moments in the Clone Wars, and even a lot of the things you were mentioning, Ahsoka, I feel like they are mining a lot of things from the Old Republic era, because when I was younger and I was first introduced, it's just so much nuance. There's a lot of intrigue into ideology and what are the different ways that people view power or use power, and talks a lot about domination, and also talks a lot about what does it look like to have a true equality in a place, and all of the different choices and all of the complexities in these like dark or light or mixed of all colors people and lightsabers just really bring out this, give you a perspective about how in that galaxy so far away, what you can take back into this world not so far away, about how what we decide to do, what happens next is determined by our collective actions. And so I think we're going to talk a lot about that in Andor, but it's something I think that they look to a lot in the Old Republic era.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
well,
Shout out to Lewis in the chat. Hello, everyone. Connor asks, do you think the mall show will link to Ahsoka season 2?
I mean, personally,
I don't know. Yeah? Why do you say no? Curious.
I am just thinking that there's a lot of stuff for it to connect to, and I don't want it to force connections to things that it doesn't need to. When I'm like, listen, this is an Underworld story, right? We can talk about Black Sun Syndicate. We can talk about all these major players, which is going to be super interesting at the power vacuum after, you know, whenever Jabba the Hutt gets taken out, right? Then we can get into all the stuff with Crimson Dawn, and you know, he's going to have Talon. He's going to be bringing her up, but there's also going to be Kira, who's going to learn stuff from him and learn Terras Kasi from him. I feel like there's a lot of connections already, and I feel like it might be difficult to juggle everything, you know? That's just how I feel.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was caught off guard by Maul. I thought that we were going to get an Asajj Ventress show. I thought we were going to get a show about the Hidden Path. I thought that's where we were headed with the Jedi video games and all of that. But now that Maul is here, yeah, it does have a big job. It has to fill in this space of what's happening in the Underworld and eventually Crimson Dawn in between Revenge of the Sith and Solo. a Star Wars story. There's many years in there. And yeah, then the trailer was a little, well, for those who saw a little bit of the trailer celebration, I won't give it anything away.
I didn't see it, but I am curious. I like avoid trailers sometimes because they spoil too much.
Right. It was confusing.
Is Maul in it?
Yeah. Spoiler. Maul's in it.
Oh my gosh, no.
But yeah, I'm excited for it. And then also, by the way, for you guys, the people, our audience, they hear us, yapping all the time. So whenever you guys have something to say, feel free to jump out and say it. Feel free to interrupt us, and we'll stop talking. So yeah, don't ever worry about that. Cool. Unless it becomes a problem, we'll let you know then. But
yeah, cool.
but absolutely, just jump out. We want to hear your guys' thoughts.
That's when Choco's alter ego comes out and he just goes, "Shut up."
I gotta earn the Darth title sometimes,
But that's actually a good segue to our first segment, which is Tales of the Underworld, right? You talked about wanting that story with the path with Asajj Ventress, and we got an episode, or 3 episodes with Asajj Ventress and 3 episodes with Cad Bane. And well, I mean, just for starters, like, what did you guys think of the series overall? What was your highlights and stuff?
So this is going to be all Anthony because I have not seen it yet. So I'm going to be learning so much just listening to this conversation. When you mentioned that we're going to talk about it, I was like, okay, I'm going to go full in and I'm going to hear everything here. So Anthony, what are your thoughts? Yeah. I'm going to try to forget everything I hear after this is over.
Right. Natalie's going to, just hide over there for now. But coming into this, it's going to be spoilers abound. And for everyone watching, it's been a few days. You've had your time. I finally got to doing it. I got home late last night. I binged Tales of the Underworld. And I left. I went to bed sad again. I feel like I'm going to bed sad after watching Star Wars multiple nights this week. Huh? But sad in a I was like, this was so good. I'm feeling a lot of emotions. I'm sad that I want to know more. I could watch Asajj Ventress every night of the week. She, to me, she's like a mirror to Ahsoka Tano, to me. In a way, she was an apprentice or assassin or whatever, an acolyte to Darth Tyrannus. And she's betrayed by those around her. And eventually she walks a path closer to the light, but in a nuanced way of understanding, again, a nuanced experience with power, with empires, with orders and community. And in a way, it's like a mirror to Ahsoka, who starts as a Jedi, has betrayals in the Republic and the Jedi Order, and then comes to her own path towards the light. So we see, my favorite part of this was seeing Asajj Ventress sort of take on, I'm like, is this a Padawan? Is this your Padawan? Like, is this your apprentice? They're friends. I don't really know how old this child is. I don't know how old Asajj Ventress is. But that was just my favorite part, was seeing their dynamic. And
I would say Maiko looks or acts like a teenager. Maybe like 15, 16. As old as Ahsoka.
Oh. Wow. Okay. I always forget how old Ahsoka is at any given time also.
During the Clone Wars, she's 14. And then...
Oof.
After that's 3
and
years.
Clone Wars goes on for 3
We don't have to talk about the ethics of that.
I know.
Well, it's actually a really good callback to, and a callback to anthropology and history, because Palpatine, not a lot of people talk about this because they're tunnel visioning the Jedi in this, but Palpatine is the one that introduces the Integration Act, which forces the Padawans to war. So everyone's like, oh, they're training children soldiers. I'm like, well, no, they're usually training them in vocational skills like agriculture and diplomacy, but then the war happens and Jedi have to go to war. Palpatine introduces the Army Integration Act, and so they become part of the Grand Army. And then Palpatine's like, we need the Padawans too. And it's like, what are you gonna do? I mean,
what a good fascist, you know? He's a great fascist, Palpatine. And wow, even I didn't know that. And even knowing that doing that would kill many young Jedi, it also results in exploiting and taking advantage of the surviving young Jedi and turning them into Inquisitors. So, you know, many birds with one stone on that one.
Listen, you know, game recognized game, right? You gotta recognize Palpatine. He's good at fascism. You know what I mean? Like he legitimately he kept forcing the Jedi. He kept, you know, holding two plates out, and then one of them is cat poop and the other is dog poop, and he's like, choose, and you have to choose one of them, and they're like, I guess this one. So you just force them to make the best of bad decisions. Do we join the war, or do we let robots slaughter like a bunch of civilians? I guess we should protect them. But now we're in this war. You know what I mean? He just keeps putting those choices, and it sucks.
Kenny says, please, do you mind if I can talk about this? This, of course, is referring to Asajj Ventress's episodes. Kenny, if you'd like to call in, you're more than welcome to call in. But very briefly and temporarily, we will be talking about Asajj Ventress's episodes. So if you want to do it now would be a good time to call in. If we want, so Anthony, how did you feel about Asajj Ventress's decision in the beginning? Actually, let me lead with, have you read Dark Disciple?
So I kind of cheated, and I didn't read it, though I've heard many good things about the writing. But I do know what happens from other sources. So I do know from beginning to end overall, you know, what went down. I went down the Wikipedia rabbit hole.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So how'd you feel about that first scene?
Yeah, so, I mean, help me out here, y'all. I've been messaging people on our Fulcrum Discord, just getting people's thoughts from those who watched it already. So at the beginning, we see this beautiful scene. I'm so glad we got the answer of what happened. So, and it happens in the book as well, but to see it on screen, where Quinlan and Obi-Wan lay Asajj Ventress into this pool on Dathomir, and then they leave, and she sort of is reawakened by Mother Talzin or the spirits of other fallen Night Sisters, unclear, help me out. But they tell her, this is the choice you're talking about, right? They tell her, you can't, okay. If you want to, I think it's if you want to be with the people that you desire, you can be reborn, but
so
is it that if you're reborn, you can't have them?
To join her sisters and Mother Talzin, or to return to the land of the living. And the cost of returning to the land of the living was her heart's desire.
Heart's desire. Yes. I mean,
prefaced by the question, do you love him? So it's
right. Yeah. I mean, I get it. Quinlan? I mean,
yeah.
Listen, they gave him an upgrade in the beginning of that episode. Jeez.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Quinlan's a zaddy, so I get that. But then I'm like, but she loses the heart's desire, so I'm a little confused. But then I get wanting to come back to life. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean it's something that we've kind of discussed already, but it does seem a little. Where I came down on it is I get it as like an artificial barrier to stop them from just getting together and living happily ever after, and then there's not a story there. Like it was the impetus to create story, but it did feel weird to sacrifice your life to save someone, and then be like, I'll give them up. All right, I know.
That's where I landed on it. Like so this is why. Ooh, this is a larger problem that we can all talk about in a little bit, but the larger problem is the short form storytelling is great for ancillary narratives, but I feel like it's hurting its more important legacy characters. And so in the time that we have with Asajj, we don't have the time to enter her mind space and get insight as to why she is making this decision, right? In the way that that it plays out in the show, you know, you have two choices, and then she makes it. So I'm like, oh, okay, you sacrificed your life to save the one you love, but then now you're choosing to come back to give up your love. And so I would like to hear what she's thinking. Is Asajj being like, maybe I can add more net good to the galaxy if I come back? Quinlan will go in his own path and we'll, you know, go our own ways. My job is done. You know, I saved his life, and then we can move on. You know, stuff like that. I mean, there are a lot of valid reasons that I can see that she's making this decision. I just wanted to get that that insight. You know?
Yeah. Well, luckily the show's not the story's not done. Once again,
right? And
we will have more.
This was the segue that I was talking about, because, you know, I feel like with these episodes confirming that Quinlan was the creator of the path via Lyco's information, that we could get a show with that. But just to entertain one of our longtime friends and loyal viewers, we're going to bring in Kent Kari to talk about this scene in particular, I suppose, because they said they have a personal reason why they couldn't like these episodes. So let me get him in here really quickly.
And then, as we're bringing him in, I enjoyed the episodes. I just had, you know, problems with this, but I loved seeing the guy who just couldn't let go of the fight, couldn't let go of the war, and like there's a lot of really good stuff in here. But Kenny, how you feeling, man?
What's up, guys? I absolutely hated all three of these episodes.
Oh no!
I can't see you guys at all. I can't see you at all. But I will say, as someone who puts himself above and beyond a Ventress stan, it's always good to see her every time. But after reading Dark Disciple several times, that beginning ticks me off. She literally went to the deep end to protect Voss just for a mother figure to come around and say, you can't be with him. What? What? Are you kidding me?
I mean, I understand you. I think we're both personally invested in this ship.
Mm-hmm.
What are we calling it?
Mother Towson is always pulling that stuff. You know, you can never have it all.
Is it Quintress?
I would have been fine with the choice if it was Ventress's choice. It wasn't Ventress's choice. Her entire arc throughout Clone Wars, since her introduction, a lot of people get it, at least from my perspective, a lot of people get it wrong as a survival. It's about choice. Her entire life has all been about choosing what's going to work for her instead of what she wants to choose. Like her becoming a bounty hunter. That wasn't a choice for her. That was literally just a choice by proxy. She needed to do something. Bounty hunting seemed working good. Another good one would be her choice to join the Jedi. She just lost her master to a horrible accident. A Jedi sees her use the Force. Now, I know Pep and Brandon will definitely probably disagree with me on this, But her becoming a Jedi was not her choice willingly. It was a choice by proxy.
Yeah, it was the best of the options.
Exactly. This is one of those times where it is a choice by proxy. Because she wants to be with Quinlan. We know this. We all accept this. No, Talzin. No.
My question is, what does it mean? If she sees him, is there just nothing happens?
She goes back to the pool.
It almost felt cultural.
Yeah.
It almost felt cultural. Like, she respects the Dathomirian magic so much that if she does choose to be with Quinlan, he could lose his life, completely undoing everything that she did in Dark Disciple.
You know, you bring up a
so
good point.
by her choosing, and I'm air quoting the hell out of that, her not to be with Quinlan protects him. That's BS.
Let me ask you a question, though. What if the reason she had to make that choice had nothing to do with the show? What if the reason she had to make that choice was because after Thrawn gets back, he has all these Night Sister, like, dead Night Sisters in coffins, and he's gonna dip them in the water like tea bags and then bring them out, and now he has a whole bunch of heartless warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe this is like a backdoor introducing for that.
It's another
could be. It's a stretch, but it could be. It could be a nice introduction, because we don't know what kind of magics we're dealing with. We've only ever seen the one mother outside of the 3 that we saw in Ahsoka, and we don't know how powerful they are. We know Mother Talzin's ridiculously strong.
We did know Daka.
That too, and
Yeah,
Daka
was a beast. Yeah. But it took Palpatine, Dooku, and General Grievous all fighting together to take down Talzin, and she still kind of lived.
But I think you bring up a good point, Kenny. And shout out to Binabees on the TikTok side who says, I have such mixed feelings about the way Asajj returned like that. Let them be happy. We're all invested in their love.
Facts.
But there could be, and since we don't have this information, there could be an angle where, you know, it's manipulation by Talzin itself. Like, why would she give her this choice to begin with? Does Talzin have some skin in the game? Does she want Asajj to return to the living? And does she want her to give up her heart's desire because in the future she's gonna want to cash in that favor and be like, I need.
It just occurred to me, and I didn't. It just occurred to me, and I just dawned on it. What if this is kind of a soft connection to what happened in the Acolyte with the twins?
The timing's like way off.
I mean, it's way off. It's way off.
Please elaborate.
But it's possible.
All right, so
elaborate on the theory, please.
So, just like as we saw in the Acolyte with the twins, they were born of the Force.
Yeah.
Forcefully born with the Force. Let me clarify that. Forcefully born within the Force. Talzin used her own magics to summon Ventress. I'm wondering if she's trying to find ways of resurrection similar to how they did it in the Acolyte.
It could be.
And there was another Night Sister that had successfully created life in Clone Wars Stories of Light and Dark. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of stuff that we don't know yet that we're piecing together. So I'm excited to get new lore as we move forward.
I do think it has a lot more potential to connect with Ahsoka Season 2, though. Especially since they returned to Dathomir.
I would love to see whoever they choose to play a live-action Ventress talk very nuanced with Rosie. Like, come on.
I mean, you already know my pick.
Who's your pick? I'm curious.
My pick
or his pick?
Everyone's pick. I'm very curious what y'all think.
My pick is Deacon
You
Lockman.
go, Pep.
Diggin Lockman, she was in the 100.
Okay.
So it's DICHEN LACHMAN.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
She did a spread, and she had a short hairstyle. I was like, that's Asajj right there.
Okay.
And she plays a warrior in the 100, so there's some action experience. Choco's pursing his lips.
Yeah, I don't got one.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it. But Kenny, do you have one in mind?
Oh, that most definitely. I have been on this fan cast for the last few years. It is Florence Kasumba, AO from Dora Milaje. Hands down, no questions whatsoever. That is Ventress.
Yeah, I also see that one too. I give him a
That's a good one. That is a good one.
I love the strong stance.
Yeah, me too.
Stand on that.
I'm seeing Zoe Kravitz. For some reason, I'm like, Zoe Kravitz. I was thinking of, the image of her as Catwoman in the Batman.
Yeah.
Mine, and I was like, I can see that.
She knows to pull off a bald head.
I think, yeah.
I see the look. I see the acting. My only concern is Asajj is tall, right? I don't want to like bring shame to short people.
You're right, but Zoe Kravitz is super short.
That don't matter in Hollywood.
Just give her an apple box like Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Tom Cruise is tiny. Like, it works. Just make it work. Low angles.
Phineas McCormick in the chat says Rosa Salazar. I gotta look that up.
I gotta look up. I'm bad with names.
Oh, is that Alita?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I see that too.
I see it.
We do have to keep moving since we are on a clock.
Then I will make this last point real quick. This is something that another mutual mentioned that is theory based only, but hear me out. At the beginning of the first episode, where we see the funeral scene, directly played out from the book, Lady Dragon JJ, for all of us who know who she is, mentioned that we didn't see the mysticism, didn't see the green mist or the green magics from the Night Sisters. I'm wondering if the one that we saw visually is the one that Mother Talzin gave to Ventress. Because when we see the boys walk off, they're just walking, and Ventress is visually looking at them. She can physically see them. So I'm wondering, as a gift, as like, you need to let him go kind of logic, even though I hate that, she gave her this last moment to her to forever remember. Thoughts?
Yeah,
It's not a bad thought.
I gotta rewatch it. It was late last night.
but then again, we did see a whole, like literally a Super Saiyan levels of Night Sister magic surrounding Ventress. So I don't know if there was a complete lack of Night Sister magics, but I don't know. I'm on the same page as Choco in terms of like I just want to know what happens if they like is it like a time travel thing? Do they like touch and go swoosh, like so suddenly everything is kind of taken back? Because like my thinking is I want them to be together, but also I want them to be co-workers, for lack of a better term. I want them to manage and be the ones that handle the path, like they do it together, instead of having this kind of like they both run away and although they both deserve peace, but I like the idea of both of them because she's essentially helping Lyco right now. She is a sub path because he refused to leave with the path, but
yeah,
that's what
I feel
want
like
the path show.
Yeah. I feel like by the time of Bad Batch, it seems like when she meets up with Omega and Clone Force 99, I had assumed she was like in the path, but didn't say it at that point. So I don't exactly know where this all lines up in the timeline with the Tales of the Underworld, but my hope, look, I'm with y'all. I want the live action tag team of Ventress and Ahsoka in the next season.
Yeah.
Bring back Quinlan.
Oh, yeah.
Bring back our Night Sister friend from the Jedi video games. Let's have everybody come back.
Yes.
Marin.
Ooh.
Yes.
Man, you got I have a scene percolating in my mind. Like, if it like comes down to Ahsoka in season 2, and like Thrawn kind of like brings back a Night Sister army, and like Ventress is kind of like brought into the mix somehow, and then like Ahsoka arrives, and Ventress is like, you.
Perfect impression.
So, did we want to talk about Get Free, or did we want to talk about Andor first? Or is it all together, all in one thing?
Your guys' choice. I was just going to come up here and talk about the Ventress arc and maybe a little bit about the CAD, but that's about the extent. I was going to step away and let these two fine individuals handle all the conversations, because I'm still emotionally messed up with Andor.
Yeah,
as we all are.
So good.
No, I'm just cognizant that they have to go. We're 45 minutes in, and we're still at the very beginning of the first topic. So
you're
I
dismissed.
think we should dive into Andor, and we can kind of like tie it to who Get Free is and like where this project came from. But I think we should start with the meat of the topic of Andor.
All right,
let's do it.
So then why don't we do this?
With that said, I will let you all out.
All right.
Thanks for calling in.
Having you as always, Kenny. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Always, guys. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
All right.
All right. Well, I was wondering real quick, because he did mention that the CAD episodes. Real quick, Anthony, if you have any thoughts on the Cad Bane, and then go into your overall thoughts on these 3 episodes of Andor.
Oof. Okay, well, with Cad,
I feel weird.
you know, I really loved.
It's always Cad Bane to me, like fully.
Right. Just gonna do first names. They're my pals.
It's like
I really
Superman
loved
Super.
that. Yeah, just super. I really loved this bromance with the two Cad and other friend. What species are they again? They're Duros. Yes. I mean, I was not expecting the surprise towards the end that Cad has a child with this other woman who was eventually part of the gang, or I don't know. I feel like with these episodes of Tales of the Underworld, I like can't fully understand exactly everything that's happening. It's making a lot of assumptions.
There's not a lot of fat on any of the stories, so they're like it's just the facts and all crammed up.
Yeah,
I do think it's kind of weird when I don't know. She left Cad for his like best friend, and like it feels like that she did him dirty,
Yeah,
a little bit. Not that she had to wait for him, or at least the friend should have like I don't know.
I'm also just a little confused on like what, if any, message is coming from the Cad Bane arc. Like it's like okay, there's a very unequal society. Cad is a result of that, being forced to live on the streets for a time, and then it gets involved with this gang. But then like the friend who's I really liked in the story then just becomes like the deputy or the sheriff, and I'm like, nah. I don't really love this story. Like, then just as the like enforcer within this unequal society. So I don't know what they were trying to say with that, but in terms of getting a bit more tissue on the relationships between them all, that was interesting. But yeah, I guess I wish we learned what time, in terms of the timeline, all those 3 episodes occurred as well, and how close it was, especially at the end, to Clone Wars.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm curious, like, having listened to all 3 of you talk about these episodes, are you generally happy with what came out? It seems like there's mixed feelings. Like, is it what you expected? I'm trying to get a sense, because I hear this, like, undercurrent of, like, there's some things we don't like, some things that aren't making sense. But, like, yeah, what do you all think?
Well, you know, as always on DYAD in the Force, and in particular with this community, it's all about nuance, right? And it's less about conformity and more about passion. And it's a mixed bag, you know. A lot of these episodes, at least for me, I don't want to talk for Choco, at least for me, these episodes gave us good stories, but reveal a lot of problems with its format and a lot of problems with their decision making when it comes to choosing which stories they want to tell, right? Because I feel like Tales of the Underworld could have just as easily been about Hondo, Embo, Dengar, any of the others, even given us a Boba Fett episode, because he's part of that too. But choosing Ventress and Cad Bane, you had to squeeze in a very kind of, you know, sonic pace narrative with the both of them, and they're very beloved characters in Star Wars. So while I enjoyed Asajj and Lyco's story and what they gave us, I was a bit let down by the setup for Asajj, and with Cad Bane's story, I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to paint us the picture of why Cad Bane is who he is and what he gave up and what was taken from him. Much like Solo, a Star Wars story, there's a lot of those kind of smaller elements to the story that tell you who they are. But without a larger narrative to kind of sink your teeth into, that's as deep as you can get with them, right? So we have Cad Bane in the Clone Wars, Cad Bane in Book of Boba Fett, and we have a lot of meat and bones on their adventures. But then we get just a small little glimpse of their origin and their motivations moving forward, and it's a small piece of the pie, you know. So it's kind of like a love-hate, but I don't hate anything in Star Wars. It's just kind of like, aw, come on, give me more.
I get that.
They're enjoyable to watch, but there's but kind of like you said, they are inherently a little shallow, where there's no a lot of the stories in Star Wars have something to say.
Yeah.
And these feel like it's just a random thing that they imagine. You know what I mean? Where like, and where you want it to, like, each story should have something to say, and then when you pair them up with each other, I feel like that should tell you something, but neither of that ever happens. So, yeah.
I felt the same way, especially with Barris's tales. It gave us a lot of, you know, what she's been up to ever since and where she plans to go, but there's not a lot of depth there. Like, I really want to be with this character and explore where their headspace is at, and then of course, you know, this I'm aware that this is just me being selfish. It's just, I want shows about these characters. I want full-on animated shows about each of these characters that I love.
We want more.
Yes, absolutely. But of course, this is the space that we've created. DYAD in the Force is all about, you know, respecting people's treasures and coming to terms with the anthill in the backyard as well. I don't know if that makes sense. I just made that up.
I was like, the anthill.
That was deep. Yeah, that's deep. Many layers there. No, but that's really interesting, and it's very. Yeah, it's interesting to hear as someone who hasn't watched it yet. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I still recommend you do watch it, though. I mean,
I will. Yeah, I definitely will.
Phineas McCormick says, I feel like Cad Bane's story worked better because it has a clear ending to the story, whereas Ventress' story seems like a pilot for a new series, which gives me hope for a Ventress show.
And there's another entirely separate issue I feel with Star Wars, is that stories need endings, and it feels like they are going to keep perpetuating and treading water. And
sometimes it feels like we start like 10 stories at once and we finish maybe 5, and then we start another 5 stories, and then we finish 2, and yeah, I get that feeling.
I think that's a wholly Dave Filoni problem. Like, we'll get another project here in like 2 years, and then in that project, Plo Koon comes out of nowhere, and then everyone's like, he's alive, and then we have to get a tales about how he survived, and like that's why I'm so like, I'm gonna die on this hill that Mace Windu's dead. Like, just let him die.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because you kind of like, I don't know what kind of story you can write that doesn't sully the fact that he's been gone throughout.
Yep.
The Civil War, and he's one of the people that would have been like, no, I'm going back into this fight. You know what I mean?
Mother Taliesin said he had to give up the fight. But I mean, why don't we go ahead and jump into our Andor talks, because there's a lot. So the first thing I want to ask is just kind of an overall for it, and then we can dive into the nitty gritty. So, I felt after watching it like Cyril when he was lying on the bed, and I was just devastated. But yeah, how are you guys feeling? What'd you think of the 3 episodes we just got?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. It's like one of those things where, we've known the Gorman massacre is coming. Like, it's not really a surprise what's happening. And then, like, we know that there's going to be the separation of Mon Mothma leaving the Senate and, like, fully being a part of the Rebel Alliance. But actually seeing it on screen, or, like, on my computer, and then also seeing the parallels to, like, the world that we're currently living in this country, kind of gave me chills, not always in the best way. Of just, like, realizing that a lot of the tactics that we've seen throughout season 2, from the Empire, from the ISB, are, like, some of the same tactics that we see, like, right-wing and fascist governments all around the world do on a daily basis. Like, it's even, like, the smallest details of, like, how they use news media and propaganda. It's like how I mentioned a few days ago to Anthony, like, how the ISB is, like, running kind of like a shadow government, how there's just, like, the demonization of people that are not humans. There's just the deportation. There's so many things, and it was all building to this massacre, and I wasn't sure personally how detailed Andor was going to get with it, and they got extremely detailed, and it was horrifying. It was really horrifying in a way that I think a lot of live action Star Wars, I haven't seen that much detail into such an atrocity. And so it just really stood out to me, like, comparing it to our current worlds. But at the same time, I've always talked about for so long how Mon Mothma is, like, one of my favorite characters, and I've wanted to learn a lot more about her motivations, about like the actual timeline of the things that she does. What are these moments that she has where she's like, I need to take an even bigger stand? And they really showed that here. And so I that's like the silver lining for me. But it's really rough to see this play out, and to also know that, some of these activists were basically, like, taken advantage of and bamboozled so that we could get to resources under their feet. Anthony, what's your take?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's so strange to simultaneously feel like this was an incredible series of episodes, and I was glued to watching it, and I was sinking half the time into the couch. But at the same time, as we saw horrors like genocide on Gorman and several other tragedies, we also saw some of the most inspirational moments in the series so far. And I'm right there with you, Natalie. I'm a Mon fangirl. I also a Bale fangirl and a Padme fangirl. I'm a fangirl of that little trio, that little squad they got going on in the Senate over there. And so,
gotta read this new book, but keep going.
I know. I gotta read that book, or at least I gotta do the Wikipedia rabbit hole. I gotta read it. But how I left was also feeling like it hurt so bad because of how close it is to our reality that we're seeing across our country and in the world and throughout our history that so many of us and our ancestors know really well. And so I think that the thing that stuck with me at the end of this show when I went to bed was the title and the repeated question of, who are you? And it felt so targeted. Like, it's really a question for us as viewers. Like, who are we? Who are we going to be at our moment, at this moment in history?
Shout out to the newsletter.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to, before we get to newsletter, I want to like jump onto something Anthony was just saying. There's something I was just thinking about in response to what you were talking about. Let me see if I can remember it. I was thinking about like the bellhop talking about like rebellions built on hope and like learning that that's where that line came from. And I just think that that's like a really beautiful and humble story, and I think it's like kind of reflective of how movements are built on like the base, you know, not necessarily top down. It's actually like bottom up. And then there was something else. I know it'll come back to me soon though. Yeah. But what is y'all's thoughts on these like 3 episodes? Because it gave me so many mixed emotions. I think they did a fantastic job. But yeah, what do y'all think about it?
Peak Star Wars. Like I think week to week we were both just kind of like, man, the show is so good. I think it's the best. And then like the next week, this is the best. And then this week, yeah, this is the best. Like it's just like week after week, solid confirmation. Like the way that they can give us such grounded and real things in Star Wars that but I've been saying in the beginning is forces Star Wars fans to grow up, you know. Yes, because when it starts, because and you know, all respect to George Lucas who for you know making it consumable by all audiences, you know, for kids. You get the mustache twirling villain and like your blue and green versus red, and it's very easily discernible the sides, but to have the depth of character that we have in Andor, where even Cyril, who stands on business and justice, is, I mean, it was so powerful that he was the one that was being asked that question, because he's like all about justice, as TikTok Studio gives me this stupid notice. All about justice, or he has a boner for justice. That's what Choco says. He doesn't realize it, you know. He doesn't realize how his actions and his boner for justice is making him blind to the injustice that's happening underneath his nose. And this is the best Star Wars we've got.
Yeah. Sometimes there's a big difference between what's right and what the law states, and he had to learn that.
Yes.
Yeah, and so go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, like, I feel like this version of Star Wars and like these episodes of Andor, I think really also like force the question of like, do you truly understand what Star Wars is about? As like being about anti-fascist rebellion? And I know that y'all have talked about this on your show before, but it's like so many we know those types of Star Wars fans who like still think that the Empire is like the left, or you know, stuff like that, and or like progressive movements. We know those types of people exist in our fandom, and I think like these episodes of Andor like really put into perspective like what an empire is, like what authoritarianism is, and like you said, like it makes Star Wars fans grow up. It also makes you like have to answer to like, what is your ideology? And if you love Star Wars so much, and if you love these core characters so much, like how does your ideology match with the people that you claim to love, that you claim to look up to? And so that's been on the like forefront of my mind, and that was the thought that I had earlier that I forgot.
Yeah,
And that's actually exactly what I was about to say about these 3 episodes. Is Star Wars as a franchise has a very real alt-right pipeline, and a lot of people will, you know, watch Anakin's journey, which literally Anakin is a good kid who falls into and gets attracted by these right-wing and authoritarian talking points, and leads him down that pipeline.
They should be,
and then he ends up being a space fascist, and you know, enslaving people and all this stuff. When he himself was, you know, was born as a slave, like he should know that's bad, you know, but he still does it, and it irks me when people in the fandom will do everything they can to absolve him of any culpability in any of those actions.
Well, he wouldn't condone it.
And so I think that's why there's a lot of pushback on certain things, on Andor, or on there's a book called Leia Bloodlines by Claudia Gray. Amazing book about it's one of the best just books. It's like a political thriller about Leia and it's right before the sequel trilogy, and like the dawning of the First Order and the politics surrounding that. It is fantastic.
They actually called out in that book the false populism that's happening.
It was shocking it was a fantastic book when I first read it. It was a devastating read in 2020, and it's worse now. but
It's worse now.
And I feel like there's a lot of pushback in Star Wars because, you know, quite literally, the First Order was people who wanted to make the galaxy great again. They saw what the Empire did, and they said,
exactly.
The Empire, it was good. It was just a crazy guy ruling it, and so we can bring that back without that. And there's people who collect Imperial memorabilia, and then they go to Imperial like reenactments of battles and stuff, and you're like, there's like a whole fandom around it.
It's like seeing someone fly the Imperial flag, and they're like, it's all about states' rights.
Yeah, it's so wild to see at cons. It's at every con.
And so this show makes you look that in the face and go, really? You know, like you can't, you know, it's not for the media illiterate. And then the other thing I like what you say about people waking up suddenly and finding out that they ideologically line up with the bad guys, and they have a problem with that. You know,
Luke like Cyril in a way.
Like just like Cyril. I feel like because when I said Vader wouldn't condone any of this, like, it's a joke because, you know, one of the biggest creators on YouTube for Star Wars Theory saw SA and said, well, Vader and the Empire wouldn't condone this, and our immediate response was, doesn't really matter what they condone. That stuff happens under fascism. Like it's
and they absolutely condone anything that serves their ends. Though the disgusting part about it was the fact that some people are like, we didn't like seeing it because it's triggering, because because they've had personal experiences, or they just didn't want to see that type of thing in Star Wars, which is totally valid. But if your reason is it makes the Empire look worse than it should, I'm sorry, you might be a Nazi. Like, I don't know.
Right. No, I mean, this is the exact reason why Natalie and I and several others came together and created Project Fulcrum, because for so long we've seen the fandoms we love, including Star Wars, be these battlegrounds where there's these white supremacist factions in real life who deliberately infiltrate, manipulate, and try to recruit fans into their ranks to support their MAGA agenda in real life. And for us, we know that there's so many fans across races, across backgrounds, across genders, who know that and believe in our values of freedom and equality, and understand that Star Wars is a story about people coming together to fight fascism and to fight for true equality in the galaxy. And for us, we wanted to create a community within Project Fulcrum, but also give people with these weekly Nemix manifestos ways where they can be part of our movements and take action in real life. Because as we've been talking about, there's so much that we're up against, and there's so many parallels between what's happening on screen and what's happening right now. But what's luckily for us is that we, one, have the tools and are still able to connect with each other in these spaces to take action. And two, there's so many people who agree with us, but who don't yet have a place to organize, don't yet have a place to come together with people like them. And so that's just that huge need. And I'm so glad that Andor Season 2 has given us that unique opportunity to intervene.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So shout out to
we...
Blaze Faust on TikTok. Welcome to DYAD in the Force.
And shout out to Cosmic. I'm finally able to catch a stream. Love the content. We appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. So why don't we go ahead and break? We can get deeper into it. We'll break it down episode by episode. Normally we would do separate storylines, but all of them intertwine so much in this one that it's hard to. So just the first episode, if you don't remember, I'm just gonna call out a bunch of stuff that happens in it, and then we can just open it up for discussion, right? Because we start out, we're on Yavin 4.
Sounds like
we have we have Bix and Cassian together. He's injured. We have it says, is this one where the Force Lady shows up? I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah. So the Force Lady shows up, which is awesome. We know that they've left Luthen and they aren't fighting his war. We also have we jump over, we get Dedra, and she's speaking to her superior, and he keeps telling her to like be proper, whatever, to not be emotional, which I thought was interesting. And Cyril pops up. She gives him the hardest kiss I've ever seen. Like, it looks physically painful when she kisses him. We get Mon Mothma, and basically we go all the way until Cassian finally goes back on the mission, and gets to Gorman, checks into the hotel to check the sight lines. How do you guys feel about this first episode?
Oh, I think you accidentally unmuted and muted.
Okay, cool. I feel like this episode is really like setting the ground for episodes 8 and 9. Kind of like letting us know who all the different players were going to be. Getting us back to some of our main characters, protagonists, antagonists on Gorman. I really found I didn't expect the Force Lady storyline, to be honest, and so that to me was a very interesting way to show Cassian and so many other protagonists throughout Star Wars, their kind of hesitance to be as great as they can be and to be in this leadership position. And so I really liked, like, you know, something I think people have talked about is like the lack of talking about the Force generally in Andor. And I thought this was a really nice way to like add that in and to not have it be like a full Jedi storyline, but to still have some elements of the Force and to just to really bring to light that, like, since the first time since like the first episode of season 1, this like kind of hesitance that he has about having to be this leader and be this captain. And so I thought that was like really beautifully done, but I think watching it, it was making me nervous for the episodes I knew were coming because it was so like even keeled, you know, and it's like, oh, this can't last. So like this is building up to something very bad. Yeah. Anthony, what did you think?
Yeah, I feel like you can't just watch that first episode of this arc. You really just have to go right into what follows. And something that episode and those moments you lifted up reminded me that this whole series, I feel like, is hitting on this theme of leadership as a responsibility. And it takes a lot of bravery to be in leadership, and that we need to actually offer real support in addition to respect for people who are willing to take on leadership in our freedom movements. And that for Cassian, I mean, he has had an experience where, he was getting trained up by Luthen, who is not really the best model of, moral or caring leadership. And then in contrast, you see again in this Mon Mothma growing into and really standing firm in her moral leadership of caring for other people and getting the type of support, starting to get the type of support she needs from people around her, like Bail Organa or what have you. So anyway, with this episode, it's exciting to see the Yavin connection and finally how that base is starting and how that element and that group of the Rebel Alliance is starting to coalesce around their values and standards and how they're going to fight this fight. But it really is just a nerve-wracking thing because you know the shit's about to hit the fan.
Other shoe's gonna drop.
One of the standouts, like you mentioned, Natalie, was the Force healer. I totally agree. Like, bringing in the Force like this was it made me recoil in a good way, because I didn't expect that to happen. But what it did do was reinforce, like you said, this whole notion of being a leader, and the responsibility of those around the leader. When we talk about mysticism and the Force and the will of the Force, when she says, normally people take with them what shapes them, but your pilot, Andor, is gathering as they go. He's a messenger. And for the longest time, we've been talking about what it means to be an agent of the Force, whether you're a Jedi or a Force sensitive or a non-Force sensitive. We have like Chirrut, for example, who in Rogue One is an agent of the Force. We can see it work around him through the very mysticism in his final acts. But Andor, it lends some narrative weight to someone who can't hear the will of the Force, who is non-Force sensitive, but nonetheless carries it with them, the will on their shoulder, and it's a heavy burden. And it also lends credence to the fact that there is free will, where this all hinges on Andor and his decisions, right? The Force is not nudging him along and being like, oh, now do this, now do that. Andor has to make all of these decisions, has to act, and has to be somewhere where he needs to be, as the Force healer says. That was my favorite part of that episode, because I didn't think that they were going to bring in the Force that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like another thing, I don't remember actually. Y'all can tell me if this happened at the end of this episode or if it was or if it was in episode 8. But I feel like once they got to Gorman, there was like kind of this like preview of the propaganda machine that was like being set up. You know, that may have been episode 8. I don't remember exactly, but I just remember like that was something that was kind of like previewed, was just seeing like how the media was like starting to already put together the narrative of what was coming, even though technically they should not know what is coming. And I thought like that, I was thinking a lot of, you know, parallels that exist in our current world of like how we talk about, or not how we, but how some in the media talk about deportations, or talk about, you know, genocide, or talk about, you know, police brutality, a whole host of issues, how like the narrative is sometimes set before you even know what the story is, you know, before you even know who the victims are. And so that was also something that started to like stand out to me a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, like, just like real world examples, like whenever there's a shooting, or you know, excessive force, or something of that nature, the media is always looking at, well, what kind of person was this? It doesn't matter if they were killed unjustly and with excessive force. Were they bad? Were they in a gang? Were they doing drugs? What is it about them that we can spin that to make it seem justified in the eyes of consumers? That was a good point.
Yeah. And before we move to the next episode, some of the last things that really jumped out to me, I mean, everything that has been said before, of course, but there was a scene where Vel walked up to the little tent and was just like, you know, she hadn't seen anyone for a long time, and she's no longer working for Luthen, and she really just, I don't know, she just needed connection. And so Bixit, after like a second of her just kind of standing there awkwardly, Bixit invited her in so they could talk. And it's interesting because there's like it's on both sides, where there's a loss of connection but also a need for support.
Yes.
In these types of situations, that jumped out at me.
Yeah.
It was in this episode too that when Andor landed on Gorman, a lot, excuse me, a lot of the reporters were outside already reporting, and then we got some of that back on Coruscant when we heard it through the loudspeakers in the Senate chamber. They were already priming everybody.
Yeah. And you know, I mentioned before the weird kiss, as Cosmic in the chat says, the most awkward and least affectionate kiss in the series.
Oh my god,
it was perfect. But then after that, he walks outside and then runs into the girl from the Resistance. You know, I was about to say the French Resistance.
Well, you know. I wonder why.
But he seems to have a genuine connection and is like a real person with her. It was like, oh,
yes.
So he's not like, you know, a less human C-3PO. That's interesting. Now, we also got to see the one thing I absolutely love this scene. Is when he checks into the hotel and the bellhop says, "You'll have to carry your bag this time, your own bag this time." And you're like, damn, he remembers it from last year.
Yeah, he clocked him.
Oh, I don't know. I got super excited for that. But, yeah, I mean, any final thoughts on episode 7? Or are we ready for episode 8?
I think something you were speaking to before about the need for connection for people on all these different sides. The other thing here is we also see how both the rebellion and the empire, in this case, the people within it, they need trust in order to actually prevail. And ultimately, we know the lack of trust, the amount of distrust amongst the ranks of the Empire, ultimately is part of their undoing and their inability to be effective. And then with the rebellion at the start, at the start of Andor, we see so many of these different rebelling factions don't trust each other. We see Saw Gerrera's folks, as much as I love Saw Gerrera as a character, toxic leadership, and it's
Literally.
stoking even literally with the gases. That was kind of scary, honestly. I was like, what's happening? But
She's my sister.
we see,
We understand each other.
and we see the impressions over here. I mean,
I'm very impressed.
they're good. Yeah,
Oh, I got a
on
lot.
point.
I got a lot.
Well, I'd love to hear a Luthen, because Luthen here also
Cassian
a
Andor.
toxic.
Do you still have that as a sound?
I do. Is it?
Luthen's
Cassian and
as much as. Oh wow, you really pulled it in. As great of a character he is as well, he is all about the lack of information, the lack of accountability, lack of trust. So what I really appreciate here and what we see, I think, through characters like Bix and others in this latest episode is how the rebellion is growing because they're willing to trust each other. They're willing to actually make this their movement more accessible to more people by allowing them in.
Yeah, and it's the very realization by Andor. It's in this episode as well, where he says we need an army, and it's gonna take a village. Like he's not the only agent of the Force that's acting, which is interesting to think about. Like how many people in the rebellion are also carrying as they go.
Yeah. And then you think about, like, even though we're like we're spread between a few different planets or a few different military bases, but like this rebellion is popping up all across the galaxy. And like time and time again, I just think about all the different roles that people and people play in this. And so in this episode alone, it's like we're showing everyone from just working class regular folks to people who consider themselves movement people, to people who are more militant, to people who are in positions of power in terms of the Senate, to people who are assistants to people who are in power in the Senate, and then we have media, and then it's just like there's all of these different roles. It's a massive ecosystem, and I think for all the bad things that do end up happening in Andor, I also do think that it points to how everyone has a role in movement work, and that it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be the person, you don't have to be Andor. There's a lot of other roles that are super important, and this episode in the next episodes really show that it's not just about him. It's really about everyone around him that also helps him get to where he needs to be. And so I think that's a really important lesson in Star Wars generally.
Yeah.
Yes. And Natalie and I, when we were writing this week's newsletter, we were thinking a lot about how that lesson, why we wanted to reflect on it. When we organize in the US here at Get Free, one of the principles we hold on to and we really share with new members is we own our role. Like the different cells of the Rebel Alliance, we must keep our eyes on the prize while understanding that we're one group amongst a larger ecosystem of groups that are each doing their own part and holding their own unique roles for creating the change that we need. We don't need to do everything. We're going to be really good at taking our bite of the apple. So I think that is something I'm happily watching evolve and be told in Andor this season.
Oof, that makes me that makes me sad because I'm thinking about episode 8 now, and it's a natural segue to episode 8 because I just wanted to put it out there that I got sad thinking about whether Cinta was also carrying and gathering as she goes, and if that was another agent that we lost because some stupid ass people on the mission. But yeah, why don't we move on to episode 8? You know, this is where it all goes down.
Yeah, I mean, jumping into episode 8, and this is just a thing. I'm just going through these points so that we can book in it, so we know where the episode begins and ends. You know,
and really quickly on the red play button side, if you haven't already, give this stream a like, a thumbs up, and on the TikTok side, you know, tire out those fingers, give us the hearts, do us a favor and do that.
Luis Alvarado says, I'm not emotionally ready to talk about 8 and 9 yet, Choco. It's okay. It's okay. You can pause the stream, but we won't be able to read your comments in real time, so.
We're doing it together.
It is what it is. Yeah, we'll cry together. But
that's
this
a good
is
one. Really quickly, Phidia says, I like how as the rebellion grows, we're seeing more and more aliens in it, showing the rebellion is inclusive in their strength.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's a super important theme.
Which
I wish we saw more of it, because on the opposite side with the Empire, something they don't focus quite as much on in Andor, and I'm wondering if it's in part just the limits of using the really amazing costumes and designs that they're doing for aliens and not wanting to do too much CGI or animation. But one of the things we don't see so much, and that's really highlighted, shout out to Chris Kemshaw and the Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire, is that the Empire writ large is enforcing a racial hierarchy where most species and beings of the galaxy are forced below human beings. And so as terrible as we see many humans, like the Gormans, facing the wrath of the Empire, most of the species of the galaxy who aren't human are consistently bearing the brunt of the Empire. So that is why in the Rebel Alliance and its diversity of coming together across species is so important, and why that's the reality.
Yeah, and I think you see the most diversity there, like on Yavin 4. I feel like that's where they were put in some of the budget to show that there was like non-human beings a part of the Rebel Alliance. But yeah, my guess is that it was also financial restraints and reasons.
Luis Alvarado in the chat gives us I believe it's a Yoda quote talking about the clones. Embrace others for their differences, for that makes you whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like you mentioned before, Pep, and I think you got it from somewhere, but you know, we had the clones who are identical, but the clones under the Jedi all gained individuality and all were able to express themselves. You have stormtroopers who are individuals, but under the Empire they are all uniform and they lose who they are, right? That's how you really can tell. Fascism demands uniformity.
Mm-hmm.
It demands it. So
that was Dave Filoni on the celebration stage talking about Ahsoka season 2.
I mean, honestly, that would also kind of explain, like, we were talking about that scene where oh my goodness, where Dedra's like kind of forced to act in a professional manner, and I feel like that kind of is reflective of like a way of having to be a certain way that you present yourself all the time. So makes sense.
Yeah, even her expressing any form of emotion in her speech was not acceptable, which is
exactly
crazy. Yeah. But yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, this whole arc, as much as like we should be focusing on the people on the receiving end of the Empire on Gorman, even with Dedra, this whole arc, I just kept seeing her as like she is being part of the Empire is continuing to dehumanize her as well.
Yes.
Whereas by the end, when we get to the last episode, or no, it happens in this episode, where Cyril ultimately, in his breakdown of loyalties, attacks her, and where she is belittled by the men around her, and where she is to the point where she doesn't even. I wonder. That question is also for her. Who are you at that point? Like, who is she at the end of that day on Gorman?
Yeah, and it's actually a really it's a at least for me a callback to the book Lost Stars by Claudia Gray as well. Claudia Gray, shout out to Claudia Gray. With Sienna, a character in the book who is majorly loyal to the Empire, while everyone that she loves and grew up with defects. And I feel like this scene is sort of like a mirror of that, where Cyril's aggression towards her, like, you can see some of her internally break down, like, you're hurting me. Like, she realizes how heavy this is to Cyril and how important it is, and she knows her role in all of this. And I love Denise's or Denise, I think it's Denise Goff, right? Not Denise. But I love her portrayal when she finally pulls the trigger. There's a crack in her voice, and it's one that shows that despite knowing the weight of her decision, she's trying to bury it. She's trying to push it down and stand on business, because this is her whole life, right? The Empire was everything to her. She has worked her butt off to get where she is, and amidst very real obstacles in the patriarchy, like, she couldn't let it go. She had to stand on business and follow orders. And that it's kind of like Sienna in the book, a lot of people she loves defects, and she cannot let go of her disposition for the Empire at that point.
Yeah, and you even see that crack form when she first gets this assignment. Like, you can see that, like, discomfort with even getting this assignment, but it's like push through until the very end, and now like, look at what she ends up losing. And so, yeah, it's like a really sad, but like poignant point about conforming to authoritarianism and like what you get in the end from it.
Which is another good point by our good friend Cal Forer, our senior correspondent to the Stars. I'm just going to keep on introducing him like that. As a woman in the Empire, too much emotion is pretty on the nose, which is why Partagaz throughout this whole thing is constantly correcting her, on the calls. And so when she's getting more and more of these injections of emotion from Cyril and from her own realization of what's happening, she's constantly pushing it down because she needs to less animated, just that voice of Partagaz.
Yes. Yeah. It mirrors in another way the storyline with Mon Mothma and her family, where earlier on, I think it's in the first season, when the daughter of Mon, I'm forgetting her name, but when she's first introduced and is flirting with these like older customs and more conservative customs of Chandrila or Coruscant or what have you, Mon Mothma mentions how the Empire is pushing older traditions back.
Yeah.
And then we come back in season 2, and she mentions that how what's old is new again. And I think that this example of control based on gender, control based on race or species, of origin, the Emperor, the Sith, the Empire in this case, they rely on hierarchies of value. And so it unfortunately makes a lot of sense. But I hadn't thought of it as in depth as what we see in this show, where it's like, it perpetuates everything. There's a hierarchy of every single ladder.
Yeah.
And that's part of the early warning signs of fascism is the rampant sexism, the strict enforcement of gender norms, and kind of going backwards. But yeah, so real quick, I'll just do a quick recap of episode 8. Right, so we started out. Cassian's gun is sick. All the pieces in the suitcase, that was chef's kiss.
He's like, I don't need this mid-range thing right now. I'll take it apart.
Yeah, and then we also he calls out to Willman, who's on a planet. Who Willman's got some game, man. He's handling his business as well. Then we get to the. Then they start landing the mining rigs on the planet. Nothing's happened yet, but the Empire already started moving in the mining rigs. I made a note. It's French Dad. I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who runs because the Gorman Revolution. He's watching them remove the barricades, and he's realizing what's going on. And he tells his daughter it's a trap. We can stop this right now because they're all getting ready to march in. And that's when she says we can't be silent anymore. And he says, silent. We'll be silent when we're dead, which was chilling. And he also confronts and tells Cyril what's going on. Well, he tries to beat up Cyril, and it doesn't work. Cyril's actually kind of a beast. Then we get that evil Imperial douchebag who's like, I'm the trigger, and you're the finger. Cyril's trying to make it back up to talk to Dedra. He awkwardly walks into the room with a whole bunch of K units. They look at him, and you're just like, this is weird. They bring in those weird troopers that this is like their first assignment, and they don't know what they're doing, and everyone knows they don't know what they're doing.
Yes.
Cyril finally makes it to Dedra, and he mans up, and it was kind of scary, but in a good way.
But that's a good kind of jumping off point for what Anthony said about creating this hierarchy. Because if you think about it, no one knows what's happening on Gorman, except for the ISB, the people in charge, Emperor Palpatine, the soldiers that are there to just be kind of riot guards, just like trying to keep the peace. They don't know what's going on. They're just soldiers. They're there
all just
to
pawns.
do their jobs, and as well as the gore that they the father who's coming around to this revelation is like they're landing mining equipment. It's not about the spiders. What do they want? What are they doing? And that's what's sad about this massacre is that they don't even know what they died for.
Yes.
Yeah.
That it's heartbreaking, and it's that. Oops, sorry.
Oh, so I was just gonna finish with what happens in the episode, and we jump in.
You go.
But yeah, that obviously that's when everything comes out into the crowd. They get boxed in by the stormtroopers. Cyril comes out. Cyril and Cassian have their fight, and then we get the K2 chase where they end it with the truck. We get the Gorman broadcasting their end to no one, sadly. And Dedra is emotional at the end, as well as Cyril's mom. But yeah, what were we going to say, Anthony? What jumped out at you in this episode?
It's so heartbreaking. Just hearing you say that, it's just like I'm reliving those episodes. That line about dying without knowing, it's direct connect then to the next episode, which we'll go into, about the fascists deliberately destroying truth to gain power. And in this, what's one other noticing that connects to Dedra is that she didn't even know that the Empire was dropping the mining ships at that time, right?
Yeah.
Like the amount of distrust and disposability within their own ranks.
There's the hierarchy
in the Empire, the only one who's not disposable in the Empire is the Emperor.
Yeah.
Everyone else is at a different
And she
level.
realizes that in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you see that with the untrained officers they send out into the crowd deliberately to stoke a fight. And yeah, I think that again, it just hits so real because in addition to what we've been seeing in real life happening in Gaza, also in the US, you know, this same storyline and tactic that we saw on screen in Gorman could have been the Wounded Knee massacre of indigenous people.
Mhm.
It could have been the attacks on water protectors at Standing Rock. It could have been more recently attacks on Black Lives Matter protesters or what have you. And so
Could be Ukraine
it's
as well.
yeah, it could be all these places where
Sudan.
a powerful few are using laws, lies, and violence to grab power for themselves at the expense of everyone else. And
I didn't pre-plan this playlist, but we'll roll with it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
And also, since I know you guys have 15 minutes left, we'll open it up for 8 and 9. So I don't know if you guys want to run out of time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I was gonna say, like, with I think with this episode 8 and this episode 9, you know, I've talked about it earlier tonight, but there's this theme of like how important it is to the Empire to be able to control the entire narrative. If they can't control the narrative, then they don't have power. They don't have as much power as they think. And so I feel like in this in episode 8, we see like, you know, it's all about like Empire-approved media are the ones that can really like tell you what's going on. They're repeating the exact same talking points that you're actually hearing from the ISB, like almost literally word for word repeating the same things that the ISB are saying. And, you know, like this is also something that happens right now in our own world where it's like, you know, right-wing governments and fascists try to rewrite history in real time, you know, to avoid accountability, to avoid making sure people don't know what's actually going on, to obfuscate the truth, you know. And we've already talked about some of these examples. I think the Gaza one is a really important one. Like, you know, the Israeli army has killed, you know, over 60,000 Palestinians and displaced millions. And yet, you know, the numbers that we get from our government or Israeli government, you know, are not to be believed, but are often repeated in terms of like the actual impact and the harm that's caused to people in Gaza. And I also just think about, you know, all the penalties for not just politicians, but like everyday people who speak out around Gaza. And we're seeing this with deportations. We're even seeing it in like weird cultural ways. Like, I don't know if y'all saw this, but there's like a very popular R&B artist, Kalani, who was supposed to do a Pride event in New York City, and like the city canceled this event because of her pro-Palestinian views. And so there's just like this tie-in throughout all the episodes of like the Empire needs to control the narrative, and if they don't control the narrative, and the moment that they couldn't, when, you know, Mon Mothma's actually, her speech is getting out there, that's when you can actually see those cracks form. And you see like all of a sudden they're running around like chickens with their head cut off when they can't control the narrative. And so I think it's important to always be able to put out your own is super, super important in the Star Wars universe and in our own.
Yeah.
Also, to what you were saying is one thing it drives me crazy is how unwilling the media is to say pro-Palestinian anything. They will say it's pro-Hamas thing, and you're like, no one is saying they're pro-Hamas. They're
or
saying,
anti-Semitic.
yeah. But they refuse to acknowledge what the actual discussion is because it harms the narrative they're trying to control.
Yeah.
But there was an interesting thing. Our good friend Sahela at Sus Theories had a post today relating this to our current events, and I didn't even realize it. But the Gorman Plaza, I don't know where it is in Palestine, but she has a picture of Palestine. And there's the same golden dome building in the center, and it's just like how our media reflects our world, and then it's like it's the Gorman Plaza, and I think it's Gaza, but I could be wrong. But it's just like seeing those two images side by side. I'm just like, it's too real at this point, you know. And then I also got another comment saying, listen to the last radio broadcasts from Poland.
Wow. Yeah.
And I've never heard them.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find them, but I was wondering if you guys had any anthropological or historical insight as to where these radio broadcasts were. I'm assuming they're from the World War II. Or
yeah, I'm assuming World War II as well. But I think generally, I feel like that does relate to a lot of like humanitarian and human rights situations that I think about all of the, like, since we're talking about Gaza now, I think about like all of the journalists and like just like free like citizen journalists in Gaza who have numerous times said like, this is probably going to be the last time that you hear from me. Like they've posted on Instagram or YouTube, and that kind of gave me like a very similar kind of eerie feeling. But I'll also say, like, on the positive side, I think these episodes also showed once again like these like individual people, like regular people in the galaxy that start to see with the Empire for what it is and are not willing to play ball anymore. So whether we're talking about like the hotel concierge, or I was thinking about how in episode 9, in the 9th episode, when the ISB, like, or when like those agents who are, you know, supposedly with Bail Organa are trying to get into Mon Mothma's pod, and they're like, oh, sorry, like, we don't have the key, you know, type of thing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I loved this, like, starting to see how everyone is like, we're not dealing with this BS anymore. Like, we're gonna start fighting back in our own small ways, even if it's like an administrative hang-up. It makes your life more difficult as the Empire, and I think that's something we need to like replicate here. It's like even the smallest things that interrupt fascists make their lives way more difficult.
Yeah, we don't always know the impacts of the ripples of what we do, and so I love seeing that too. And in the aftermath, at the end of episode 8, which was really when I almost lost it, was when Cassian is listening to the radio broadcast from one of the freedom fighters, and you know, is calling out like, anyone out there, anyone in the galaxy, can anyone help us? And you know, there's more than just one messenger in this arc. There are messengers in many ways. There's Cassian and Mon, there's the woman on that radio, there are each of the people taking action. That's a message. They're passing the baton, person to person to person, until the choir is too big for the Empire to break. And I think that what we also see by the last episode, and it's fully exemplified by Mon Mothma's speech, which could be in our own US Senate, that exact speech, verbatim practically, but we also see the rebels start to craft their own narrative. Instead of just hiding from and underneath the Empire's propaganda, and instead of just trying to refute or play on their terms, the rebels are starting to set their own. We see Remember Gorman, rebellions are built on hope. I want to make sure I say exactly which is the death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. Calling Emperor Palpatine a monster. Like, these are all things where they are exposing and stating their truths and forcing now the Empire to have to fight on their terms. And so I think that is something that is really important for all of us here who believe in those same values and are up against fascists in our own country, is that we can't let them dictate what the story is. Instead, we actually have to be the ones who are saying not only what is true, but saying what we're for.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
like
and
to say that there might be ideological disparities, but I like to say as a stand-in, what's going on right now, I feel like AOC and Bernie is like Mon Mothma and Bale, like the two senators that are speaking out against what's happening. And gosh, again, it's just like, how is Star Wars our life right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that really got to me is like, I mean, that quote from Mon Mothma, right? Like about the death of truth. Recently, there was a senator from Texas, Republican, and he quoted Joseph Goebbels in a hearing.
I remember that.
Yeah, he said it's the absolute right of the state to supervise the formation of public opinion. And everyone's like, "What? What? You can't? No!" That, which was absolutely insane. Also, in the beginning of episode 9, we had Oren, the senator from Gorman, being arrested, and he was saying, "No, I'm a senator with full rights and protections. No warrant, no charges." And as they're taking him away, he says, will none help me? Gorman is being slaughtered. It's my people today. It's yours tomorrow. And that last thing really kind of gutted me, because it was reminded me of a quote that I heard a long time ago, and that was from a German pastor. And he said, first they came for the socialists. I did not speak out because I wasn't socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. I didn't speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I did not speak out because I was a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. And I was like, damn.
Joe?
Yeah. It's just, you go.
Just really quickly, it's like today, where they just announced, or not just announced, but it was announced that we had our they had elected the first American Pope in history, and the media is all over him, all over this guy's tweets and stuff, being anti-Vance and anti-Trump, and like, this has nothing to do with the papacy, like, but they're trying to smear him already because political ideologies don't align.
Yeah. I mean, because the same, like MAGA forces we have here have an agenda to bring the church backwards. They don't want the more progressive reforms. I mean, even despite,
they're talking about white Jesus, not.
Yeah.
That's a different. That's not the guy who was saying we need to love each other, to treat your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
To feed the hungry and poor and heal the sick.
Yeah.
But yeah, we know you guys gotta go, unless you have any extra time. But anything else you guys want to add? It's your guys' floor. Anything we missed? And where we can find you in any of your stuff.
Yeah, I'll say, like, as like a wrapping point, and I think we started on this, but what you just said, Choco, like, reminded me, is like, ultimately, Star Wars has always been a story of anti-fascist rebellion, and I think Andor is just like cracking that wide open, but this is like what it has always been. And so I really hope that, like we said in the beginning, that people take this opportunity with Andor to explore the connections between what was going on in Star Wars in 1977, when it's, we're talking about the Vietnam War, all the way to like what's happening in our world now. And to, if you care about Star Wars and you care about these themes, and to like really start making those connections between what's going on in our world, what's going on in Star Wars, and how like the themes there of like solidarity across race, across class, across gender, across generations is like really a lesson that we can take into our real world lives, and to fight fascism in our own galaxy. And so that's like the big overarching theme that I have every episode of watching Andor, and that's what we're trying to do with Project Fulcrum is like make those ties really clear. For for a lot of Star Wars fans, it is clear, but like really wanting to like show specific examples of how it ties to our world and like actual ways that you can fight back every week.
And if I can ask one more question for you, really quick, what did you think of Cyril's end, and what does that tell us overall?
Didn't see it coming. Like he did.
Yeah, I want Anthony's take here too, but to me, the most like important part of that ending was that moment of when Andor asks him who he is, and he has that like pause, and you can tell the wheels have completely spun.
Yeah.
Like he's completely made probably close to a 180, and yet he has no opportunity to explain himself, to explain the harm that he's caused, because he's already done it. He's already worked in favor of the authoritarians, and this is the result. And so to me, I think there's a huge lesson in there that is probably pretty obvious. And I also think it's just, at the same time, a bit of a tragedy. I think he's kind of a tragic character, like someone who got taken advantage, who basically, like, I think, like a lot of people, has this like patriotism, wants to do the right thing, thinks what they're doing is the right thing, goes in so over their head, ends up fighting for the wrong things, and then by the time they realize it's too late. And so I think he got what was coming to him, but I think it's a tragic character.
He had it coming.
Sorry. You're not wrong.
And you, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, Cyril's a character who was following rules for rules' sake. And instead of realizing until perhaps maybe the last moment that rules are only so good if they're reflective of our values. And when they're not, we have to violate them, those rules. And I think overall what I would leave here with, and what's really sticking with me again, is that question of who are you? Andor asks us to decide. And for us, in a country not so far away, this is the same question that's been asked of people just like us. People just like the four of us, people just like everyone who's watching or will be watching these clips. Our ancestors answered that question and went on to abolish enslavement, win civil rights, all while creating the food, music, and art, and Star Wars, and many more things that are so a part of us today. And I just want everyone here to know that if you're a Star Wars fan, if you're an Andor fan, whether you're new or whether you've been in this fandom for a long time, you have friends everywhere. You have friends here. You have friends who are coming together in Project Fulcrum. We want to be fighting alongside you and encourage folks to seize this opportunity we have with Andor Season 2, where people are waking up to wanting to fight and wanting to take action. We have a place where we're doing that right now. So you can sign up at bit.ly/Project Fulcrum, capital P and F. And yeah, we still have one more week of this show. I don't have many thoughts about what else is going to happen between now and then, but I'm definitely going to watch Rogue One right after the season finale. And yeah, really
might do a
grateful
special live stream on it.
Ooh, amazing. Well, thank you all so much for having us. Excited to.
Thank you.
Would love to hang again.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. And if you're ever not sure if you're on the right side of history, art and black women. If they're on your side, you're on the right side. That's like historically. That's accurate.
That's true.
Totally.
That's so true. But yeah, thank you all so much
100%.
for having us. This was really great, and it's always great to be a community with like-minded fans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking the time to come on here and speak your piece. If you guys, again, want to know more about Project Fulcrum, you can go to bit.ly/Project Fulcrum. Links are in the description below. You can also catch all of their socials as well. Thank you to Natalie and thank you to Anthony for joining us. We will let you guys go.
Cool. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
All right.
See ya.
All right. So, unless anybody in the chat wants to speak more on Andor, or you can, it's bonus either way. Talk about what you guys wanted to talk about with Andor. Spooky Kitty says, fantastic guests. Absolutely. And this is what we live for. This is why we do this show. So let's catch up with the chat. Darth Angel says, thank you to Natalie and Anthony. Brandon Lopez says, I just got here. I vote Tat away, my guy. Let's see. Cal4 says it's tragic. It's the tragic reality that not only do the people of Gorman not know why they're dying, but even the Empire's own soldiers are being sacrificed for all of this without knowing why. Yes, exactly.
And that's so true, because at the same time that they're sacrificing these people, Dedra is sacrificing Zero, and then her master is sacrificing her, and it's just this it's a sacrifice train that in the end, when she breaks down, she seems to be realizing that, like, what did I do this for? What is on the other side of this? What do I get? A bigger, more sterile apartment? What does she want? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like, you know, leading up to this episode, Cyril was all about that. He was about it, right? He was like, an hour. That's all I get. And then, like, the first time she kisses him like that, was it episode 7? That was the first time Cyril was like, ew. What was that? What was that? Ew.
Brother, ew.
I made a pretty good joke about Yavin 4. What was the joke? Let me go back up. This is some Silent Hill ass music in the background. Yeah, I know. I put in the playlist generator Star Wars ambiance, and that's what they chose. And it's funny, the AI did that. Jeez, AI is like getting crazy. Because then, like, as we spoke about, you know, the plight of the Gore in the last radio messages, the music started sounding like the Andor episode. That was the music that was playing during the radio broadcast. I really do want to look up the radio broadcasts from Poland.
Yeah, actually,
did you find it?
Also, there's a book that's out that I actually wanted to buy, and it's by the actual people living there. You know, this is them talking in their time, and it's in 2 sections. So you have the Jewish people writing about it, and then you have everyone else writing about, you know, what was happening, and it's like. Yeah,
all right.
It seems really like a really interesting read.
This seems
Lord
like
Goop
this seems like a very widely known thing. It's the first YouTube video that I got. What were you gonna say?
Lord Goop said the Gore anthem at the end killed me, and I really think that guy, the surly gentleman from the Resistance who started singing their anthem. I think he saw it. He saw the handwriting on the wall. I think he knew what was about to happen. He looked back. He saw that there were stormtroopers, not in a barricade array, but in a firing array.
Yeah, a firing pattern.
I think he knew.
Oh, I just got your message. We need to move faster. Okay. All right. So I imagine, since this is from 1939, it's in public domain. I can play this whole thing. It's about a minute. This is Poland's final message in 1939.
Niech żyje Polska!
I mean, we're not going to be able to understand it, are we?
I don't know. But you could probably... Oh, this isn't it? That's just the music? Okay, never mind. Maybe I didn't find it.
But that one
wait,
guy...
wait. I think this is...
Halo, halo? Czy nas słyszycie?
heroes.
Ostatni komunikat.
Here's our final message.
Dziś oddziały
German
niemieckie
troops have
wkroczyły
entered
do Warszawy.
Warsaw.
Braterskie pozdrowienie przesyłane żołnierzom
Send
polskim
brotherly regards,
walczącym na
Polish
Helu
soldiers fighting.
i wszystkim
All us
walczącym,
fighting
gdziekolwiek się
over
jeszcze znajdują. Jeszcze Polska
Poland
nie
has not
zginęła.
perished yet.
Niech żyje
Long live
Polska.
Poland. Man, I hate whoever added music to that message. I was just like trying to listen to it like in earnest. Let me see. Is this it?
Poland has not perished yet.
Halo, halo? Czy nas słyszycie? To nasz ostatni komunikat. Dziś oddziały niemieckie wkroczyły do Warszawy. Braterskie pozdrowienie przesyłamy żołnierzom polskim walczącym na Helu i wszystkim walczącym, gdziekolwiek się jeszcze znajdują. Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła. Niech żyje Polska!
Dang. Damn, as Gordon Ramsay would say. Back in 1977, Yavin 4 was just Yavin.
Oh. Gotcha.
When Andor asked who Cyril was, and the blank expression on his face was powerful, his entire purpose for the past 4 years was to find him, and Andor never had him on his radar. Yeah. You
Listen,
know,
the day Bison came to your village.
was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday.
Wonderful performance. Sadly, that actor died, like making that movie. I didn't mean to laugh there, but while we're on the subject, that the same person I was talking about, who was a pastor who had that that message of, first they came for the socialists, but I didn't speak out because I wasn't socialist. That guy actually went on to, I mean, his life was rough. They arrested him for reasons, and then they finally went to convict him and make him. But he didn't do anything. But they were like, "You'll spend 7 months in prison." But he had already been in prison for more than 7 months, awaiting the trial. So they're like, "I guess you served your time." So they let him go. And then they arrested him again because they were like, "You know what? Never mind. That wasn't enough." And then they imprisoned him for like 8 years. And his cellmate asked him. His cellmate asked him, why, because he actually was a supporter of the Nazi Party. And he asked him why he supported them, at least at first. And he said, "I find myself wondering that too. I wonder about it as much as I regret it. Still, it's true that Hitler betrayed me, and I had an audience with him as a representative of the Protestant Church shortly before he became chancellor in 1932. Hitler promised me on his word of honor to protect the church and not to issue any anti-church laws. He also agreed not to allow pogroms or like riots against the Jews, assuring me as follows: there'll be restrictions on the Jews, but there'll be no ghettos or pogroms in Germany." And basically he went along with it because he was promised a bunch of things, literally directly. And obviously none of those things held up. And I feel like that's exactly what they were experiencing, here in Andor. And, at first the senator from Gore didn't want to push back. Mon Mothma wanted to help him push back, and he was like, "No, we just need to be quiet so that they'll leave us alone." And it did not work out.
Yeah. Non sequitur. Did I get the Manny?
Well, right now the wave is too high; it goes up. But I'm sure it falls into a Manny.
It falls into a Manny. A lot of people would like to fall into Manny, right? Shout out to Boba in the TikTok chats. Any predictions on what could happen for the last 3 episodes? A lot of predictions, really. this is the sad thing about what they're doing about the 3 episode drops, is because we don't know what happens in the year after. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big cut, but we do know that we are going to see a lot more. We're going to see the Empire. We're going to see the Rebellion as a much more established military presence with their own form of rules and regulations, right? Cassian was coming and going as he pleased, and that might not be a thing anymore, which, for security's sake, makes sense.
Yeah. We only have 187 likes on the TikTok side, and I want you guys specifically to know that, so that you guys can start helping us.
Yeah, Lord Goop says, quick unrelated question. Excited for the new post-Tross Finn book? Absolutely. We get more Finn content, Finn and Janna.
Did you say Morphin? Is it? I'm just kidding. I was gonna do a Morphin time joke. It's Morphin time?
It's Morphin time.
Appreciate you, Harris.
I will absolutely say that when when the book comes out.
It comes out. When you do your video on the book. So it's Morphin time. Got Morphin. Yeah, I'm excited for all the books that come out, to be honest. Dude, this second book is a drag.
I told you
I thought I was getting into the weeds with the Zodlax, and then like there's even more people coming out of the woodwork. I'm like, I can't keep track of this.
But it's actually an important read because
I know,
you know the first book is like standalone, and then the second book, the third book is not standalone. They directly go into each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, question for you and everyone else in the chat. What are the chances that Bix was pregnant and there might be a little Cassian Andor running around the galaxy?
There's a high probability, and I think that's why she wanted to stay. You know, she wanted to stay to help Andor, to kind of help build a future that she would be proud of to bring a child into. But because Andor was being reticent about it, she had to make that choice, you know. And I wholeheartedly think that Bix is not out of the fight. I don't think she ran away. I think what she's doing is separating separating herself from Andor, so he doesn't have to worry about her and put her above the cause, because she believes in it so much. So she's like, I'm gonna be on this base.
I'm gonna be on this base. We also got something else that was interesting. A hint that
hey, Monty,
she might. What's up, Monty? Bix might be a touch sensitive to the Force.
And
And
didn't really talk about that one, but yeah,
that made me. First of all, to me, that just made a whole lot of sense. And I feel it in my bones, and that's why she connected with the Force healer. And then when the Force healer was just drawn to Cassian and understood that he had this great purpose,
maybe you're.
I think that was the nail. That was the nail in the coffin, that she needed to make a decision, because she couldn't rob him of this destiny. The galaxy needs him.
She was practicing no attachment. Also, when she says you're the place he needs to be, I also feel like, so the payoff in this, or where we go with this line of thinking, I don't think we have a future Bix Jedi moment, but I do think we have a future little Andor Jedi. You know, a piece of Andor carried forward. But I really hated, in a sad way. I hated hearing Bix say, "And after all this is done and we've won, we could do whatever we want." I'm like, oh,
Shut up, man! Don't do this to me, man. Monty, it's all good. Just missing my Disney Plus subscription. I don't mind spoilers though. Monty, get it, or at least find a way to download Andor, because I mean, you're a writer. This is one of the best, well-written shows that Star Wars has seen ever. Please find a way to consume this media. It is wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
So Bubba says, "I'm so glad
leave.
they had her leave instead of offing her." Yes, thank you. I don't. We don't have to kill her to motivate Cassian. You know, he's plenty motivated. And I liked the retcon that we got for K2SO.
Yeah, it's an acceptable change. I mean, nothing really, at its bones, nothing really changes with that retcon, right? They still reprograms them. That's it.
Yeah. Plus, that the Chuds don't have the attention span to watch Andor, and they also hate Disney content enough, so they probably haven't actually read that comic. Don't know. So that's why they haven't been complaining about it.
Outside of what they normally do, which is fabricate something, there's nothing really to complain about in terms of this retcon. It's like, why did they not make him reprogram him on the mission? Why did they instead do it back in the base? Like, that breaks lore. Like, there's nothing really consequential about this retcon. That's just kind of like, unless they really, really want to double down on fabricating things or straw men to be mad about, you know.
Also, I love how terrifying the K2 series droids are. This is something that they tried to do in the prequels with the B2 battle droids. When they were originally created, they were terrifying. If you go back and you play the Delta Squad game, now my brain isn't working for it, they are super hard. You have to have, like, you know, explosive and certain materials in order to take them down, and they will not stop. But by the end of the Clone Wars, you know, Mace Windu was beating hordes of them with his fists. Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith is casually cutting one to pieces as he's running up the stairs, in one of the most awkward scenes. I really hate how that one scene was shot. But no, when that thing comes out and it kicks the barricade all the way across it, and it grabs the girl and throws her, and the way they shot the throw, she flies through the air, hits the ground, and slides, and it's all a single take.
And
you know how hard that is?
But also, nothing about that seemed lethal aside from just the landing, and to see her kind of ragdoll and just lose it with her eyes open. It's like, that was a throw for sure. Like, it's almost recreating, like, falling from, like, a 3-story building. Like watching that scene, I was like, oh damn, that was a huge throw, and then she's dead. That killed her? Like, Jesus.
Marty says the K2 scene in Mandalorian was terrifying in its intent. And that's the other thing it made me think of. That, I mean, the Terminator 2 scene of the K2s walking around, like, hunting Mandalorians. Yeah, they're terrifying. It took a truck. It took a truck to take it down.
Harith had a really good point. It says, I love the retcon as well. K2 is now the walking reminder of the Gorman massacre. So, you know, having K2 with Andor on during Rogue One, and knowing the you know what happens previous, he's collecting as he goes.
Oh, all right. But can we talk about how? Right. There was a Yes, there was a Gorman massacre because Tarkin landed his ship on a bunch of protesters. They erected a square to commemorate that. Then they made an Imperial garrison that cast a shadow over that square, and then they massacred the rest of the Gormans in it.
Yeah. If I had a
Damn.
nickel that a KX series droid was involved in a massacre, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
I mean, I would have 3 because of how I got massacred when I first ran into them in Jedi Fallen Order. Do you remember when you first ran into? First one you see is on Ilum, and that thing picked me up and tossed me aside. Like,
choke slam.
Damn.
The massacre was mentioned in Catalyst, right? No.
I don't recall it being mentioned there. I'm not saying it wasn't.
Yeah, I might just not remember. The fact pieces of the Empire Cyril's or took from him in Season 1 and K2 are now being used to fight Empire is just chef's kiss, yeah? I mean, I'm thinking about it right now. How much of all of this that throughout Season 1 and Season 2 Andor carries with him into Rogue One?
I mean, he was pretty cold at the beginning of Rogue One.
Yeah. This is I mean, so this goes partially to where my speculation it goes into with the last 3 episodes. We're going to see Andor regress hard. Not in his belief of the cause or belief in the rebellion. He's going to regress in his empathy. He's going to become the person that does whatever it takes.
A tool for the mission.
A tool for the mission. And it's going to go straight into Rogue One. He's going to kill that person who can't, defend themselves, can't make it out. And then he's reminded by by Jin, that there used to be a side of him that Bix believed in.
Yeah, there used to be a side of him that felt more. And can we also talk about how Dedra is casually standing on a balcony, just watching people be slaughtered?
I put the
that's
carp in
crazy.
there. I put the carp in there. In the VOD. But yeah, it's. I mean, it goes with every single kind of depiction of a slaughter. There's always someone at the top that's looking down at it with cold eyes. I think with the final 3 episodes, I'm more excited to see what happens to Dedra, Luthen, Lonnie, Clea. We forgot to talk about Clea's turn. Clea's whole
Clea's just badass.
I mean, she's risen on my rankings. And she's risen even more exponentially on my Andor is going to be the demon paradox. When you are in hell is a chorus of angels as good as a demon on your side. Wait, when you are in hell, a chorus of angels is as good as a demon on your side, I think. Try to parse that.
I don't know.
God, I hope Clea... Can you spell her name right, Harith? Jeez. Kleya makes it out of this season alive. I think she will. She doesn't have the patience to be in a sticky situation. Although Skolden's collection was was pretty close to a sticky situation. I wrote it backwards. Oh, a chorus of angels is as good as a demon on your is as good as a demon on your side when you are in hell. I believe. I'm gonna look up the demon paradox.
Yeah, it's still not clicking. But no, that specific scene with Clea where Cassian he gets back and he's like, I'm done. She's like, done? What does that mean? And he's like, Luther don't know. And she's like, what? You're tired? It's too hard? Like you just witnessed the Gorman massacre. You'd think there would be no stopping you. There was a senator who's about to give a speech to give a voice to the massacre that you just survived. Tell her you're done. And yeah, she's feisty. She's feisty.
Man.
Also, Luthen is just Star Wars Batman, but like old Bruce from Batman Beyond. But when he dropped the line that her assistant was actually working for him, and she walks up, she's like, "You're fired. Get out." And he's like, "Yeah, no, I get it."
Damn. If I had more room on my arms, because I'm planning on this side. I showed you the concept of it. I'm planning on this side, Satil and Malgus, with the two moons, Ashla and Bogan. If I had more room, I'd probably get like some form of Andor here, because it really is that important of a show. I don't know. Maybe I'll get a small Clea. I don't know. We'll see. You'd think it'd be Dedra, but clearly she's not. Clearly she's not coming home. So I'll just have to stick to the lights out.
Now to you and to everyone in chat, were you guys surprised at who was the spy in Bale's organization? Because 3 people came out and we were just like, which one? Is it him? No. Is it him? No. What?
I mean, I did say it was the first person that I saw, and then I did say it was her. And then I said I don't know, but it ended up being her. So, I mean, it could have been any of them.
Harith clocked it immediately. Well done. Boba thought it was all of them. I'm sorry. I thought it was the black guy. When he was like, when she waited at the door and he went in, I thought he was going in like to get something. You know what I mean? I thought that was his way of separating or whatever, so he can get a weapon. But
from that angle, it looked like she was turning around to see if anybody was watching, and then she would turn around and pull on him. But I mean, well, she actually did end up pulling on him because he caught her on comms.
Like she's like, who was it? Like I don't know. wrong number.
What was her actual answer? She was like I have an appointment or something.
No, it was work.
Work call.
And he's like,
what? All eyes are on the speech right now. What the fuck are you talking about? Damn, gotta go back to SOTOR, new Malgus content. Listen, stop it. I mean, we've been saying this for like the last 2 years.
No, there's so many good games. Okay, this is a banner year for games. The past 3 years have each been banger years.
It's also really, it's a really, really difficult time for ADHD. Like, because each new game is like a sparkle. It's like a glint in the sand, and you're like, ooh. But then you're not done with what you're playing with currently. So just keep on going to each glint in the sand, and you're just piling up games you haven't finished.
I speaking said, God, I loved that speech. Yeah, so that's another place where there's a small retcon. They were doing the thing where they were only going to do part of the speech and only show part of it so that you could kind of intercut in your mind what little bit you saw in Rebels from the Senate part. But no, she asked Tony to write the whole speech so she could give the whole thing. And man, it was powerful. Wonderful speech. Great time. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but after Andor, on the Star Wars YouTube channel, they do an Andor Declassified. It's like a little 20-minute thing of them talking about those episodes. You gotta check them out, you know?
But I mean, I do like that they still left Rebels alone. They said that, you know, with the hollow from the ship and Erskine behind her, that we need to get a message out to the wider galaxy. So that wasn't the speech, but it was.
No, I mean there's two speeches.
Yeah.
There's clips from the first one and then the second one from the ship.
We're discussing Mothma's speech. If so, it's so good. It was. The lines being changed doesn't make a difference. I'm gonna be so sad when this series ends. Monty has a hot take coming. Was the ghost Gold Squadron at that point? I couldn't remember. No. The ghost was Spectre. Still.
Hey, we have Jedi Master DePaul. How you doing, Ryan?
It's been a long time since I've heard him referred to as Jedi Master.
Right?
One thing I would have loved to see in Andor from Rebels was Mothma and Saw's first time meeting. We might still be able to.
I mean, yeah. I don't know if we'll see their first meeting. I don't think he'll be allowed over there, like at all.
That's what I thought, but they specifically said Gold Squadron provided the transport. No.
Yeah. So in Rebels there was a handoff for Mon Mothma. Yeah, so that they could craft their own narrative, so to speak. So yeah, I need to rewatch the episode, but I believe Gold Squadron, like there was a couple handoffs in order to drop her off.
Oh, this is Monty's hot take. Andor should be followed by a Wedge Antilles show and build on the Everyman Rebellion theme because it works. Listen, at this point, if it's Tony Gilroy, I'd give it to them. Like, again, if I think just in a vacuum, I don't really care about a Wedge Antilles show. But if they can do what they did with Andor, like, just give it to me. You know, I'm sure they can. I'm sure they'll do what they'll do. And it'll work. There's a lot of people that like, hey, like if they announce like a Claude show, they'd probably do the same thing they did with Andor's. I don't really care about Claude, like he's interesting, but like, and then we watch this. Holy shit, with the Claude.
You know what? I will say that we do need a Wedge Antilles show, specifically because the rebellion has to turn itself into a new republic. And like, just because you were part of the rebellion doesn't mean you're a leader or that you should be a leader. There's connections you have to remake. Like, there's a lot of mess that comes into that and the cleaning up the previous infrastructure. That could be a fantastic story as well.
A third handoff from Andor to Rebels to Gold. No, so at the end of the episode, Andor's not part of the handoff.
Yeah, Andor got her to the to their apartment, but nothing after that. But speaking of which, the other thing that I thought was really interesting was Mon Mothma having to come face to face with the real dangers that she'd be up against. She always knew that they were there, and she did everything she could to avoid them. But when she finally smacked that hornet's nest for the last time, you know, she's walking with Andor. She doesn't know who to trust. and he kills that that chick in cold blood. You know what I mean? Like, she hesitates for a second, and he just puts one in her head, and you're like, damn. And Mon Mothma couldn't. She was like, you didn't have to shoot him, and Andor's like, yeah, I think I did. There was just an interesting transition for her to come to terms with that reality. You know what I mean? Also, her driver came up to come get her, and Andor's like, what's his name? And he calls out to him, hey, I got her, and then and he shoots him. And that's someone that she actually knew. Like, that was rough. I did love when they got into her, flying car, and then they just kind of like turn and go out. Because I'm always like, you don't have to sit in traffic. Just go. Just go off road, man.
Slight question, topic change, if that's okay. Wait, yeah, if that's okay. Do we think Filoni is building up to heir to the Empire? Yeah.
I mean, he already said he was, but remember, heir to the Empire is not going to be the same.
Yeah. What kind of show would you like to see next? Another grounded show or a more whimsy show? I mean, writing's all over my face, all over my arm. I want to see a Path show. It's been in the background. It's been hinted at for a long time now. And now that we have Quinlan, now that we have the beginnings of it actually being like, yeah, Quinlan created the Path to help survivors. So I want to see how that came about. How Quinlan survived, even though that's probably going to give us another Order 66 scene. Jesus. Will there ever be a time where we're desensitized to the Order 66?
I don't need to see it again, ever. I don't need it. I'm
okay,
sorry.
Does it count as seeing it again if we get like a Path show and it just shows like Quinlan running away from Order 66 and surviving? Or do you mean you don't need to see execute Order 66 and then like the thing happens again?
I mean, I'm sure Quinlan was off in Boss Pity, when all this stuff happened. So like, show what happened to him there. He can fight his clones. We don't need to see it. I don't know.
And then we're gonna get a show where Plo Koon uses the Force to propel himself out of the starfighter as it's careening down, and then he lands like superhero landing. That was close. Time to hide.
And then I also I just pulled up the Rebels episode, and so Gold Squadron drops off Mon Mothma to the Rebels crew, just so you know.
Oh, you know what, man? Allow me this moment of being really cringe and I suppose whimsical, because then like if we imagine, I know you're a huge proponent of people having endings, but do you imagine a scenario where all these people do survive in their own way, and then at the end when Rey establishes the new Jedi Order, like Plo comes out, Quinlan's like, hello, we are here to help. And then like Mace comes out, what up? Just kidding.
It was me all along.
I'd love to see the Path explored in the Jedi third game. I think the Jedi games is done crossing paths with the Path. As long as we don't get any more clones, I'm burnt out on the Clone Wars. You're right. The more angles of Order 66, the better. I like the mosaic of the event. Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, definitely for sure. Like, not a Coruscant Order 66. The last one that mattered was Caloran's point of view. but definitely seeing what's happening with Quinlan and like to see if he did the same thing as Yoda. It's like the clones were like, General, we need to.
Thank you, Cosmic.
I would like to see Quinlan emerge to Rey. Yeah.
We need post Rise of Skywalker content, and I feel like those
We're getting
floodgates have just been opened. We're finally because they put time gates on like, hey, don't write any stories in this area in this era, so you don't step on their toes with stuff that they're trying to make. But we're finally getting stuff and more sequel content post Rise of Skywalker, which I'm really excited for.
What if the path ends on Tanalorr? Because when we get to Tanalorr by the end of the game, it's completely empty and no one's there.
Yeah, I mean, but that's still. I'm trying to put my mind when the.
That's after Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I mean, yes, it's after. I'm just wondering. Yeah, they wouldn't have a way to connect to him beforehand. Because I'm saying wherever the path goes to, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to stay there.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it could potentially. Because that would be a great place to sequester, and then like there's a whole flock of Jedi that come out,
There's 9 years. The path is just being established. I mean, yeah, there's always a possibility. We'll never completely shut down, the possibility. Also, I recommend everybody watch Devil's Plan. Just throwing it out there. I want to move on from the clones, but would still like a show featuring Omega. That I would love to see. I hated in my screening of Rots because everyone was laughing during the March on the Temple. I think the memes have really devalued the horror of that moment. Yeah, I mean, there was certainly a good amount of nostalgic laughter in our theater when we were watching it. I don't think anybody laughed at that part though for us with the younglings. They did. There was some giggles when Liam came out. It was like, Master Skywalker. I don't know. I agree.
Yeah, that would be annoying. Our theater did go off on the I have brought, peace and
freedom, justice, and security to my new empire. Honestly, I want more content from the sequel trilogy era in general. I think we're at that crossroads right now. Like Mandalorian and Grogu is sequel era. New Jedi Order, sequel era. Starfighter, sequel era. Like most of the movies we are looking forward to at this very present moment is sequel era. So we're getting there, and Mangu is going to be our first. Never mind, not Mangu. Mandalorian and Grogu is going to be our first foray into that, for sure. Did everyone shout hello there and throw popcorn and live chickens? Nah. Which was surprising, because I didn't even be like, hello there.
What's funny is I don't remember that. I feel like I would specifically remember that part.
I mean, things were kind of like moving at a blur speed at one point. And I say that for real. Like, I wasn't falling asleep, so like I don't remember witnessing that moment either in the theater.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Monty says Order 66 never loses its impact on me, but I waited 20 plus years for that, which is fine. I just
Also, somebody translated the Orabesh on the wall from the path and found Rom Koda's name in it. Yeah, we translated a lot of different names. including Quinlan Voss's message.
Yeah, I love Andor because even though it touches on stuff, like Mon Mothma's speech in Rebels, it's a great speech, right? Seeing, but when Mon Mothma gives a speech here in Andor, it hits way harder because like this show earned this speech like very directly, you know what I mean? And so I feel like, for me at least, a lot of the Order 66 flashbacks are not, it feels like it's trying to inject emotion into something where it hasn't earned that emotion, you know? I don't know. I just give me new stories, please.
Yeah. Also, to everybody on the TikTok side, help us out with the likes. We're still at 326. I'd like to see at least 1,000. Monty says, would you guys like to see a special about the bottom spies? Is that
Bothan spies.
I was about to say, is that a BDSM reference? Okay.
I was like, are they spying on bottoms? You know? No. Yeah, I mean that could be interesting. I don't think we seen Bothans in live action.
I don't think so.
I can't remember where. They look weird, but yeah, no, I picked up on it.
A lot of Bothan spies died bringing us this information. Not Bothan spies. They said a lot of Bothans gave their lives to bring us this information.
But more missions, you know. There's a lot of missions that the rebellion went on. We don't have any, like, we have a bunch of missions from the rebel crew, which is fantastic. But you know what? Screw it. Give me a Wedge show. Wedge Antilles gets recruited by the Ghost Squadron, right? And then he goes off. Where does he go from there? How does he go from there to the squadron, you know?
Yeah, and he meets up with Pau Drop at the Cap Sautarek Derekli Ki Vefnif Ni Sevefli Kek. I messed up. Dang!
Yeah. I'd love to see a show about how Finn was indoctrinated into the First Order. You can actually read it Before the Awakening.
Yeah.
And so you'll get that in there. You can also read the book Phasma, and you'll find out a bit more about the First Order and what happens to children under the rule of the First Order.
Yeah, Before the Awakening features stories of Poe, Finn, and Rey before the Force Awakens. Before the Awakening.
Yeah. Let's see here. Where was the Gorman Massacre previously referenced? Everyone seemed to know about it. So the Gorman Massacre was originally referenced in the expanded universe. That's where it comes from. And then it was hinted that there was a Gorman Massacre from Rebels, and people wondered, is this the same massacre? That timeline doesn't quite match up. Did Star Wars retcon it? And then Star Wars, so in canon, they fixed it by having a previous massacre and then doing a new one. So both are things.
I'd love a show set around Poe navigating the New Republic and Resistance formations, maybe investigating the abduction of children from within the New Republic.
Yeah, or give me an anthology show like the Clone Wars, but not in Clone Wars art. I'm sorry, we need to move on. Of the Resistance doing missions for that whole year in between The Last Jedi and Episode 9. You know?
Yeah, let's get some Cobalt Squadron show episodes.
Yeah, Cobalt Squadron and their bombers would be sick. We have, the Ninkas flying around completing missions. Poe's like
Lando
doing
and
hyperspace
Holdo.
skipping and Yeah.
Just a flashback episode of Lando
Ooh.
and Aldo.
I mean, hey, man.
Just bring Donald Glover back for that. Who plays Haldo? Who plays young Haldo?
Yeah, it was like we would have to cast a young a young Holder. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Older Holder can get it.
I ain't saying no to that.
Also, Laura Dern is down with Brown. Very much so.
I want more on the Endor deserters. All right, just got back. Halfway done with Andor with the parents. Dang. You're like in the thick of things. Can we change up the art style? Say what you want about Resistance. At least it tried something new. I feel like we can use a 2D animated show. Like in the style of Visions.
I'm no in the style of the Star Wars Adventures, like animated cartoons, the Galaxy of Adventures.
Oh, like almost kind of like a Tartakovsky style. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean it's more anime inspired, but like not.
I would love to see a series of Force sensitive people trying to exist now that we saw Force Healer. Yeah. Give one about the Zepho. But I feel like that's what we're doing with it at Ahsoka Season 2, right? We're opening the floodgates to explore the Force more in a mystical way rather than in a dogmatic way. At least that's what I think where Balin's Skull is going. Like, in regards to your comments about him being like the stand-in for Kreia, I feel like there's going to be a lot of ideological disparities between Ahsoka, how she feels about the Force, what Balin learns about the Force, and might be getting it from a very unreliable source, you know? It shapes his entire worldview about why the Force needs to die.
Yeah, I would also like to see Rey, post Rise of Skywalker. The galaxy is trying to get back on its foot, and she just travels around to learn as much as she can about the Force, just kind of like Jason Solo did, and after the Yuuzhan Vong War, where he just went and found different Force sensitive cultures and learned what they had to teach or whatever. If she just did that and learned as much as she could, before starting anything, I would like to go on that adventure with her. We know Luke did something similar. He visited a few, but we didn't get to go with him on those adventures. And I think there might be, there's more we can do and see.
Looks like this is something you can answer. Finishing Visions of the Future right now. Should I read Survivor's Quest, Outbound Flight before Canon Thrawn?
Wait, before Canon Thrawn? Yeah. If you've been in the legend side, going through all of the Thrawn adventures, which I'm curious, what did you think of the Thrawn duology? Because I was like, it's a decent read, but it ends up having a whole lot of nonsense in it. But yeah, let me know what you think of them. But I would read Outbound Flight and then jumping into Canon Thrawn.
Yeah. We're currently sitting at 563 likes on the TikTok side. We are 447 away from our goal. What what are our likes looking like in on the live stream on the Red Play?
I'm sorry.
How many likes do we got on the Red Play button side?
We are currently at. I mean, I'm showing 8, but I need to refresh this. Hold on.
Excuse the talk.
18. So yeah, give us likes.
18 likes. I think that's our highest like count on a Dyad in the Force show, especially live. Let's see if we can get that to 20. Let's get 2 new people in here. Someone call their friends. I really like Spectres of the Past. Vision's really, really slow. Love the Mara Luke dynamic.
Yeah, the proposal in there was nice. You say
What?
Oh, he was finishing it. Okay, I was gonna ask him about the ending, but he didn't. Hasn't finished it. I was just making sure.
Would it help if I hopped over and liked it on Red Play? You could do as you please.
It would.
But yes, it would help.
Also, it's actually easier for at least me to see all the comments on that side.
Oh, I could probably share that.
I haven't got to the proposal yet, but knew about it. Okay, sorry. I almost feel bad. There's a couple things I'm curious to know though. Once you finish, so let us know. Let us know next week. What you're thinking.
Actually,
There's a couple of weird things that sound like they're in front of you.
maybe I can do this. Did that work? Or did I just break something? Ty and the Tatooine story from Book of Boba Fett. What specifically from that? Like his whole like Sopranos thing takeover? Dang. Okay, it just updated. We have 1,696 likes on the TikTok side. Guys, thank you so much for getting us.
Oh wow!
That
Yeah,
far.
thank you.
I didn't realize. Maybe the TikTok studio is taking a while. Here, let's see if I can share that with you. Do you see that?
Swapped over. Yeah, I also spammed likes on TikTok. Well, we certainly appreciate it.
I shared the social stream with you, so you can see all of the platforms.
Oh, also, I want to say Survivor's Quest is a good read. Don't get me wrong, but if you are trying to stay with all of the Thrawn stuff specifically, I don't think. Well, I don't know. Check it out if you'd like. Also, I like Timothy Zahn. You know, I don't know if you've read Allegiance yet, but add it to your list.
Dang, we're almost at 2,000 likes now. You guys are rocking. Appreciate you guys so much. Once again, I mean, we don't usually ask you guys to do this stuff. I mean, we do the call outs, right? The usual, like, hey, like and subscribe. But like, we're trying really hard to turn the tables on the red play button side. So everything you guys do, you know, in terms of likes and just kind of being here, really appreciate you guys rocking with us and hanging out and talking. But yeah, I suppose we can hang out for like another 5 minutes and we can start wrapping things up. I'll shift us over to the end. Is there anything else that we missed? Anybody got recommendations for Star Wars comics like Dark Droids? Loving it so far. Have you read any of the Age of Rebellion or Age of Republic comics? takes time on YouTube. Just got a collab. I feel you. We connecting with the actual fandom. You know, you've seen us there. And the latest video that I put up with called "Did you really watch that movie?" is really popping off.
When does Allegiance take place? It takes place in between episodes 4 and 5 of Star Wars. But it's fantastic.
What's a satire comic? Tag in pink. Did you really watch? Is great. Comments made me cringe. Yeah, I mean, of course, we're going to get some of those people coming into those comments, but largely the ratio of really great comments to the usual chud nuggetry is on our side, at least. You know, I just don't understand how you can. Did you watch that video?
I don't think so.
So basically, I was correcting the record on a person that said Rey beat Luke in a duel.
Yes,
Rey,
I did see it.
Rey knows how to fix the Falcon better than Han and Chewie. And the last one, which was the hugest and biggest reach of all, is that when Chewie goes, and Poe goes, well, Rey isn't here, is she? The implication is that she's the better pilot, and she would be doing better in this situation to get away from the First Order. And I'm like, you have so much internalized things that you need to work through, guy, because no, he's first of all, he's probably yelling because I can't understand Shriwook, but he's like, oh, like Rey's gonna be mad that you lightspeed skipped without a compressor. And of course the dialogue supports that when they land. And Chewie goes, oh, and she's like, you lightspeed skipped.
I just don't understand, because I had also had someone tell me that Rey was the best pilot, and I was like, where'd you get that? And because Poe says, you're the best fighter we got. And I was like, yeah, fighter. And he's like, fighter pilot. I was like,
no. She's their
okay.
She's their best fighter in the same way Luke was their best fighter. She's a force user. Like, she has a lightsaber. She's like her Luke to the Rebels, her to the Resistance, is the most valuable asset.
Yeah. Let's see here. Also, I'm reading Legends. It's absolutely hilarious how wrong people are about Luke wouldn't do that. Luke straight up has a rage moment, almost slaughters a ton of Chiss in Visions of the Future because they tried to capture Mara. Yes, I mean, I don't even know how to even put it. All the words want to come out at the same time. But as someone who's read a ton of Legends,
catch you later, Monty.
These people who are complaining haven't read a goddamn thing. They have looked up. I bet you $1 million if you look up that book on Wikipedia. It probably doesn't include that part of the book in the story, or if it does, it's downplayed. Because whoever wrote the article, that may not have been the most important beat for them. But Luke messes up a lot, and that's why we love him. Yeah. I don't know, man.
Also, whenever they say, I hate how Disney has portrayed Luke, and I'm like, as opposed to him falling to the dark side completely, becoming Palpatine's puppet, and all of this other stuff that happens, Disney or Rian Johnson did him a favor. They gave him a failure that he could come back from on the light, because he never fell.
Yeah,
he had a fleeting reflex, stopped himself, and he was like, oh, but because of the narrative, Ben woke up and saw him. So he was left with the consequence of that, but he never did anything wrong. He never tried to kill him. He never took a swing. He was just left with the consequence.
He literally never tries to kill Ben at all. And you said that's a good point. But in the audiobook, it's so drawn out. And yes, the whole Kaidas arc where he falls completely defeats the argument about EU Luke. And like, plus EU Luke does try to kill his nephew as well. He ends up being like, I'm not gonna do it because I will fall back to the dark side again if I actually do it. And you're like, okay, it's okay if you don't like the movie, but like,
wow,
don't pretend.
Go for it.
Don't pretend like you read a book to say it to me. I had a friend that was telling me about how mad he was at the portrayal of Thrawn, and I was like, "Did you read the Thrawn trilogy?" And he's like, "Well, no." I was like,
that's another thing.
So why are you mad?
I had a conversation with someone who says that, like, you know, who has their problems with Thrawn under Disney, and I was telling them, well, they always consult Zahn. Zahn is very outspoken about how much they consult him, especially for the Ahsoka series. And the guy says, well, that's what he says in public, but in private. I'm like, what the fuck? What do you know about what he says in private? Like, we can't quantify those feelings. He talks about how Thrawn lines up with his vision in Ahsoka season 2. And then when someone asked him about Thrawn's actions in Rebels, he says, well, you have to think about Thrawn being within the context of an Imperial. He's going to do things sometimes that may seem out of character to him, but he is still part of the Empire.
Also, I mean, Thrawn in Ahsoka, people are like, well, why is he making dumb decisions? And I was like, what do you mean dumb decisions? This entire show is a long, drawn-out plot for Thrawn to get a ship from one galaxy to another and to take him back to the main galaxy, and he succeeded in that. That's pretty smart. Like, there's other things, and those weren't super material to his actual purpose, and that's the whole point.
And that's key to Thrawn's character, right? Because it's never about the win. It's always about his objective.
Yeah. You see my comment about Young Jedi Knights? Yeah, are they still worth reading? You like them a lot as a kid, but it might be mostly nostalgia. I read those a long time ago as well, and so I don't remember how well they hold up. I feel like they're going to be very, very 90s in their read.
It also makes me think of a moment where Thalius comes back to Thrawn thinking that he's gonna be angry, and he said, well, "I thought you'd be angry." It's like, well, no, this aligns with what I want to do, so you're fine. So it's like, you know, Thrawn in Rebels, you might argue that he's out of character, but like Zahn said, he's part of the Empire. Right, he's going to do things that are within the context of being an Imperial. He's going to do things that are that aligns with Imperial perspective in some cases, because, you know, he's being watched by the Emperor. Right, it's not like when he's on the Chiss Ascendancy and he can always curtail the aristocra and, you know, use his military wiles as much as he sucks at politics, his military wiles to get and bypass all of those people. But like with the Empire, he's going to do some things that doesn't feel like Thrawn.
Yeah, and also just a lot of people just misunderstand Thrawn fundamentally. Yeah, I mean, like, people are like, well, how come he didn't kill Ezra? And I was like, Thrawn wouldn't kill Ezra. Are you kidding?
In that context, he wasn't part of the Empire. He was stuck on a freaking
planet.
They
would fly off to the other galaxy. They'd get there, Ezra would try to kill him, and Thrawn would be like, listen, we're not in Kansas anymore. You and I have no reason to fight.
Nah,
It would actually be beneficial if we work together.
Run that back. I need you to do your best, Thrawn.
I don't know what he would call him. I haven't watched any Thrawn content in a while.
Easy, puppy. We're no longer in Kansas. We have to work together to get back to the main galaxy. Remember, there's a Texas whistle in there. Galaxy. These are no longer the times to play Star Wars.
Now, Eric, I will say the Jedi Apprentice books are still very much worth reading.
Yeah.
If you're curious. But yeah. Lastly, so Pep, there was something on my TikTok that you said we should talk about. Do you recall?
On your TikTok? Did I send that to you in Discord?
No, it's something you commented. It was like, this is a topic we should discuss.
Well, you're the one with the access to your comments, so...
Yeah, no, I'm looking right now.
Excuse me. Do you think Thrawn at least kept tabs on Ezra's location? Well, here's the thing. We don't know what happened on the landing, right? So, if he...
Well, we know he did.
If he...
He's roughly over here.
But if they... Let's say, they landed separately. Or, something happened where they were separated. Then I don't think he would expend resources to locate him. Right? Chimera looks worse for wear already. The Rook takes on Tales of the Underworld. You missed it, man. We talked about it earlier on in this episode. As you can see on the rundown on the top, Tales was our second segment. But just to give you kind of a, I suppose, an elevator take, largely enjoyed the story of Asajj Ventress and Cad Bane, though I thought that the short format of Tales did a disservice to adding depth to Cad Bane's origins and to Asajj Ventress's decision. That's the short of it, essentially.
Yeah. All right, I did find the find the comment, and I don't know if you have any place to be, or if you want to end it, or if you say this for next week, but I'll at least let you know. But basically, you just commented about the comment I made the whole video on, which was the guy saying the message has been diversity. The focus for some movies and shows has been on what characters, gender, race, sexuality, and when that's the most important thing about it, the story suffers.
Well, I'm seeing Sinners in like an hour, so I have that much time. We can talk about it if you want. It's a really brief one.
Did you want to do when everything you know about Star Wars is wrong?
Sure. And bring it back up because you're going to have to read the comment in response to it.
All right. Everything you know about Star Wars is wrong. Now, today, we aren't talking about something directly from lore, but I got a comment, and I'll just go ahead and read it out. It says, one message has been diversity. The focus for some movies and shows has been on what the character's gender, race, sexuality, and when that's the most important thing about them, the story suffers greatly. Oof. Pep, what do you think? Well, is that true?
This is going to be a short rebuttal for me. No. it really hasn't been about any of those things. It's always been about the story first. I can't recall any project in the last 10 years that has made the project itself solely about the diversity of characters or the gender of the character or whatever kind of identity politics you want to throw in there. You know, we take Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was about Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, there was a survivor of Order 66 that wanted to perpetrate revenge against Vader and joined the Inquisitors, and that was kind of a subplot to that. In the end, it was redeemed. Let's see, Ahsoka. I don't see anything in there. You know, it was largely about following Thrawn to find, or following what's her face, Elsbeth to Peridia to find Ezra, and yeah, I can't go down the list of projects, but I can't think of one that puts the sole focus on diversity and you know, identity.
Yeah, so there's definitely not any of them that actually put the sole focus on anyone's gender. Like, it literally is not. It's not really a thing. There is one project where it is a factor, though, and that's Andor. Andor is the only one where any characters, and it's specifically gender. So, you know, Bix's gender is related to the sexual assault part of their episode. Mon Mothma's, you know, motherhood and responsibilities are related to her struggle. We see how Dedra is treated, you know, in the ISB, and how she has to overcome, you know, some of that stuff, mostly in season 1, but even in season 2, she's constantly being, like, you know, too emotional or whatever, and told, you know, not to express that. Those don't hurt the show. Those make it fantastic. Yep. So it's not a real thing, but at the end of the day, here's what's going on. The culture war is fake. It is not a real thing. It's only perpetuated by, you know, weird right-wing echo chambers in order to cause division. And so this conversation always goes exactly the same way, right? It's this. They're focusing on this stuff and not on story. I ask, what story do they focus that on? And they're like, well, none. But you know, that's the agenda they're pushing. Remember, the Force is female. Like, Force is female is a Nike campaign to sell shoes. That's not it. Well, it's just, you know, Kathleen Kennedy said stuff, and you're like, what did Kathleen Kennedy say specifically? And last time, usually they don't answer, but the last time they did answer, they were like, Kathleen Kennedy said specifically that she was going to hire a female director, and it was like, and you need to earn the right to direct a Star Wars film. And I was like, when did she say that? And he, to their credit, they sent me a link to an article from 2015. In 2015, she said she'd like to have a female direct a Star Wars film, but she wouldn't do it unless the story was there. And it's 10 years later, and we don't have a film that has a female director for Star Wars, because, you know, she said she'd only do it if the story was there, and that seems like it's holding on. Like, it's not a real thing. It's only in their heads, and it's painful.
Yeah, it's the classic playbook of the Carpet Nugget Kingdom, which is essentially attacking a straw man. You know, whenever a celebrity says something, they have to spin it in a way where it means that a large group of people is being attacked. You know, yeah. So if they say, like, just for a recent example, if John Boyega says, you know, something about the toxic fans, they're going to try to make it about every single fan out there. They're going to try to make you feel like you've been attacked. And it's all a bunch of straw men, you know. And I dealt with this recently with a video where they were making up things about the movie, the sequel trilogy, just to justify their hatred of it. And we have to reiterate time and time again that we don't care if you like or dislike anything. Just make sure that what you're disliking and liking is real, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is the same person in our because we had a long discussion. They said that they were doing it in good faith, and they're like, well, no, they made her more powerful for girl power, and like, you know, she was able to, you know, fix the Falcon, and Han couldn't. I was like, that's not for girl power. Han's always been terrible at fixing the Falcon, and the thing that she fixed was something that she knew about that was installed after Han lost the Falcon. So of course, that wasn't top of mind to him, and she has to remove and fix up and sell working parts. So of course she'd be able to do it. That's all well within the narrative. It's like, well, she lifted a lot of rocks at The Last Jedi, so you can't explain that. You know, Luke couldn't lift the X-Wing. I'm like, no, Luke could lift the X-Wing. That's literally the whole point. He could. He didn't believe he could. But Yoda says size matters not. Did you forget Yoda's lesson? Like, all of these things do have full and solid explanations within the narrative. That's not girl power. And they're unable to provide any actual place where it's happening, but they're also sure that it's happening. It's irritating. The
main point here is that for all of the posturing about them making things about gender and diversity, the only people that are talking about it are the people that are complaining about it. But none of that is happening. Just like with the comment that you were, you know, the conversation you were just describing. You're just talking about all this stuff that bothers them about Rey. But it has nothing to do with the story. You
or their gender.
You talk about people's doing trailer reactions, and they're like, "Man, we just need a good story. That's it. I don't care about. We don't care about you know, the cast or anything. We just want a good story." The first thing they complain about is the cast. They don't engage with the trailer. You know.
Yeah.
You watch one of their trailer reactions, when a black guy gets on screen, they're like, "Oh, diversity." What does that have to do with the story? You don't know what the story is about. It's a trailer. So, yeah, that's all. That's the entire Carpet Nuggets playbook. They're gonna create a straw man, and they're gonna make sure that everybody has that thing to hate and cling to it. And they're gonna make sure that thing, that straw man, is also attacking you. But it's not. None of the projects are about Rey being a girl. None of the projects are about, you know, the witches being lesbians. They're not. Obi-Wan Kenobi wasn't about Reva being a Black Inquisitor. Those are all things that they just happen to be. Reva is an Inquisitor. Rey is Rey. The witches are witches. You know,
I would watch the hell out of it if that's what Obi-Wan was about. If he was just like, "I'm black, y'all, and not black, y'all."
but you know, like the witches, a matriarchal witch coven is based on like the Night Sisters, and that's just the nature of storytelling. None of this is about who they are.
They just exist, and that's what bothers them.
Yep. Anyways, like and subscribe, hit the bell icon to turn on notifications. Okay.
All right.
What's going on, Goofy Hunter?
Little Goofy Hunter.
Eric,
if you're still here, thank you so much for joining and for all the questions. Hopefully we can, we'll see you next week. Man, we're going to have an Andor finale. And what do you think, Pep? 1 week after that, like a whole... You want to do like a round table?
We're going to do a round table, but I was thinking about doing, as a part of that, watching Rogue One live with the round table.
Okay. I mean, we'll have to ask him, because that's going to be a big time commitment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Find you a girl who can bypass the compressor. Yep, absolutely.
They always complain about the very thing that they don't care, that they care about. Exactly. Like the only people that you'll find talking about wokeness is the people who are anti-woke. The only
Listen,
people you'll
I don't
find...
care if there's girls in it. I just want a good story. The commercial comes on. Oh, there's girls in it. I'm like, you clearly care. Are you
Also-
lying to yourself? It's so weird.
Also, like, Critical Drinker is like his review of the Thunderbolts. The first thing he says is like these characters that no one cares about, and I'm like, why are you making a video about it?
Do y'all think the same bad actors are pushing Anakin as a white power icon?
I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly.
I mean, listen, a lot of them are like the Jedi, you know, which is this vast multicultural organization, are holding him back from being able to succeed or whatever to attain his true power. And
It's the black and green guy.
It's a thing. It's honestly a thing. There is a pipeline, absolutely, in the Star Wars community that has always bothered me, and I was never able to put a name to it until 2 years ago.
But also, like, Palpatine. It's weird how that works out. And I don't think George Lucas even planned it that way, because you have Palpatine and Anakin, the two white dudes, and then you have Mace Windu and the aliens with him, and Yoda.
I mean, he did plan it out. George Lucas, he absolutely planned it out. Like, there's a reason that in every society that falls into like fascism, it starts with a division in the population, right? And that dividing line is usually based among a social hierarchy, right? It's usually it's minorities, it's immigrants, it's refugees, and that's exactly what he did here. The dividing line was the inner core versus the outer core, and the outer core was where most of the aliens lived, and the CIS was a lot more diverse than the Republic, but they started to blame these species for this, for the violence, for the division, for the war, when obviously it was Palpatine controlling on both sides, but he used that as a way to create xenophobia, within the Empire.
Yeah.
And of course, in any fascist, regime, the only thing they value is loyalty. They don't even care about competency. Thrawn just happened to be so competent that they couldn't lose him. But even him, they put out in the far reaches, and yeah, it's absolutely a thing.
6,400 likes on TikTok side. 13 of you. Thank you so much for joining us. I know this is the longest end segment we've ever done, but the conversation just gets so good, So I'm a firm believer that if the prequels came out today, the grifters would be complaining about how the prequels are trying so hard to make the white man look evil.
Probably.
That's what they would be talking about.
They would hate the fights in there, I mean, I mentioned it in a video I did earlier today, but like, if you're like, man, if I watched this fight in slow motion and the knife disappears, it's the worst fight ever. But then on the other hand, you're like, well, Palpatine used a Force Scream, and that froze the Jedi in place, and that's why they didn't defend themselves and just got stabbed in the stomach at a very slow speed. You're like, come on, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings has the same problem. Lord of the Rings absolutely has the same problem. And I one of my mutuals, he's another black guy, and he was like, he made a video that was like, you don't have to be in you don't. What did he say? He was like, "Look at the Lord of the Rings. Like it's all white, but it's still good. You know, we didn't need diversity. We didn't need to have black people in there." And his whole thing was like not needing diversity, but he actually made the exact opposite article or argument, and he didn't really realize it. But in his comments was the most racist people you'll ever see. They're like, yeah, you know, like Lord of the Rings, you know. Half of them were going, well, the black people are the orcs. That was half of them. And then the other people were like, well, they, jeez.
Is it a new beta video?
Saying? No. The other people were saying, "Oh, well, it's all white because it's European history or something like that." I was like, "No, it's Middle East. It's Middle Earth.
Yeah.
It's not Europe. What are you talking about?"
I mean, in the Silmarillion, there's literally passages to talking about olive-skinned, dark-skinned, or as Tolkien says, hue. Yeah, and like even the Valar and the Maiar take and form themselves to be of the shape and hue that they see of the earth. Man, I got tired just saying it like that. But like, yeah, no, it's largely a problem with its depiction in media, right? Not all elves were white, but and I'll say it, Peter Jackson just like dropped the ball on that. He made all the elves white, but they're not all white.
Yeah. Rick says, if the prequels came out today, they'd hate that Padme leads soldiers against the Trade Federation. I mean, so there's like people will use Finn. They did Finn dirty in the sequels, and that's why it's bad. And in my opinion, my humble opinion, Revenge of the Sith does Padme so dirty.
Yeah.
She literally was this badass, you know, warrior senator, and then Rots, she just sits there being pregnant, brushing her curly hair for no reason. I feel like that's something George wrote into the script, not knowing that like girls don't brush curly hair. That's weird. That's weird.
Yeah. They'd be like, why are all the clones brown? Why can't they have white clones? Jeez. Also, like the people that get that dog on Torben for his impulsiveness of wanting to go home, and when you said like it's all about like the adventure that he thought this was going to be, and it turned out it wasn't. It's Anakin again. It's like when Anakin's in Padme's chambers, and he's like, I want more. Like, yeah.
They literally picked someone that looked like a Skywalker for that very reason. Like, they were trying to show you, you know, I don't know. Like, the whole point of the Acolyte was to show that, like, there is validity to listening to the Jedi's rules. And sometimes your heart will tell you to break it. And it's not the best decision, you know? But whatever.
Malik says, "Oh, we still alive?" Yeah, that's our cue to wrap things up. Just kidding, Malik. But yeah, we do kind of have to wrap things up here shortly.
Darkness is spreading.
This is our longest. Have you saw Thunderbolts yet?
No.
Damn.
I'm gonna see it tomorrow. I'm gonna see it first thing tomorrow.
All right, we gotta do a review of that. It really is like, you will enjoy it. I will stake my sexiness on it.
No, I know I'm going to enjoy it. Like there's no, yeah.
It's the first movie in a long time besides Deadpool and Wolverine that my theater clapped enthusiastically at the end. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Because I never know how to respond to movies now. I'm an energy conduit, not a generator. And so like whenever there's like a tentpole movie, and at the end, I'm like, man, I hope somebody claps. This is getting out of hand now. There are two of them. Excuse me. Two of who?
he I know. Don't worry about it. It's Malik. What do you think he's talking about?
Kedpin Shaklop. It's been a long time. Malik, have you played Expedition 33? God, I love Lune.
I knew you would. I mean, I do too. I literally, when you first meet her, I was walking around. I was like, "Oh, this NPC? God damn!" I walked around Lune for a little bit. I was like, "I hope she comes on the mission." And then she do.
She's playing the guitar. I'm just like, slow down, baby. Have I seen what? No, I was asking if you played Claire Obscure Expedition 33. It's a single-player narrative turn-based RPG. It's free on Xbox Pass. Oh, that's what you meant, Goofy Hunter? He said, "Hey, Bob." You have it downloaded? Gotcha. It's a good game. I'm trying to find in between times to play it. I can play it for like an hour at a time now. But a lot happens in that hour. I just love I love being able to parry and dodge in a turn-based system. Adds a little bit of that skill to that type of combat. You know Charlie Cox. Is that why I hate Gustav?
I don't know. But yeah, I think that'll do it.
Video Game Podcast 1. Now. I mean, like, here's the thing. DYAD in the Force is striving to grow beyond. Right? So, I mean, bonus is the start of it for sure, but I think I'm going to replace bonus with something more relevant in just overall pop culture, if it's relevant. But I'm waiting for Choco to see Thunderbolts so we can do a Thunderbolts video. But other than that, yeah, we're covering Last of Us, talking about Destiny and GTA. We're gonna ramp things up a bit. I guess to gotta let you guys in on some milestone news, because it has been a slow grind in terms of growth here on Red Play, but we've officially passed 14,900 subs. And let's see, maybe we'll do something for 15,000, or maybe wait until 20. We'll see. But things are growing here, slowly, steady, but surely.
Yep. So that'll do it.
That'll do it for this episode of DYAD in the Force. Thank you guys so much on the TikTok side, Goofy Hunter, The Rook, and everybody else that tuned in, that gave us 79 likes. Darth Angel, merci beaucoup. And everybody on the YouTube side, especially the lurker, Sudanatemi Akanioye, and Malik, Spooky Kitty, Kent Carey, Cal 4, our senior correspondent to the stars. That's going to be an inside. It's going to be a gag for sure. Long one today for sure. You know, the conversation was great. As always, whenever the conversation's great, we just rock with it. Eric Snelker, Phineas McCormick, Lord Goob, Steampunk Wordsmith, Monty, Nemo.
When it's good, it's goo.
When it's good, it's goo. We got you. We got you. Anyways, that's it. On to the next one.
For light and for life.
We are all the gore.
And rebellions are built on hope.
Remember the
Good
gore.
night, everybody.
I'm gonna play the intro again, and then we'll go back to go to the ending.
A seed for generations. A DYAD in the force.
Hi again, guys. Bye.